Okay, so thank you for everybody for coming. We'll just run straight in then with the agenda. The first part is the declaration by members of any interest, pecuniary or other than, in accordance with the Code of Conduct. Yes, Paul?
Yeah, non-pecuniary interest in 12, number 4, Blackdown Farm, as a consultee.
Yep. Okay. Any others? I didn't notice any other than apart from that one. No? Okay, thank you. So we don't have any applications for dispensations. I remind everyone we record the council meetings now with a big microphone in the middle. Apologies and reasons for absence.
Councillor Sykes is on holiday.
Yes.
And Borough Councillor Burgess can't, but he didn't say why. Do you know?
I got the same email which said he wasn't able to make it. Of course, he doesn't have to come anyway.
And he doesn't have to say why he can't.
Indeed.
And PCSO Dan Smith, I saw him this morning. He was on early shift,
right.
So he won't be. But
so
he did say that he's been on annual leave, but he's not aware of any problems in the village at the moment.
Good.
Oh, community warden as well.
Community warden.
Yes, she's...
anyone who was at the market this morning, they were both there, so worth seeing them there. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to elect a chairman to sign the declaration of office. Let me just mention before we do that, we've been going through reviewing standing orders, as those who follow our meetings will be aware, and we didn't change the standing orders, but it turns out the practice here in the past has been that the chairman never chaired the election of the chairman. In fact, the standing orders mandatory from the legislation say that they do. Unless the chairman resigns earlier, the chairman is there. Even if there had been an election and the chairman hadn't been re-elected, he still chairs the election of the chairman. And that's all in there if you study it. So that's why I'm just saying that unlike what our normal practice has been, it's standing orders 5 paragraphs E and F. That's the system. So the first thing, as I say, is to elect a chairman. Do we have any nominations for chairman?
Well, I nominate Councillor Smith.
Fine. Do we have a seconder? George. George seconds. Who wants to vote for that? Can we have a vote? Okay, I'm permitted to vote, but I don't need to. I even have a casting vote. Okay, so I'm elected. I should have said, of course, that did anyone want to nominate anybody else? That was a bit casual of me, but no one seemed to be bursting. Yes, okay, so I'm duly elected chairman again. Thank you very much for that, and we will continue for another year. The next one then is to elect a vice chairman. This is understanding orders 5G. Can we have a nomination for vice chairman, please?
Nominate George.
George, okay. Does anyone second that? Well, there's 2 of you anyway, so it's Paul and David. Can we vote for that? Unless there's any others. No, I think you're, without any doubt, George, doing a splendid job. Another year.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I say at this point that I haven't brought the declaration with me, so can we minute that I'm seeing you tomorrow afternoon, that I'll get it signed?
Yes. Okay. Fine. And then anyway, of course, I signed it last time.
Yes, we have to sign it every year.
I know, but it's not as though it's just all the first time. Okay, we're now going to adjourn it for the public session. Let me just explain for those who are not aware and or to remind others. Public session is where members of the public are able to speak on subjects that they would like to. We have 5 planning applications to give our views on today, so that is going to be subject to at least 1 or 2 comments. After the public session is finished and I go back to the council meeting, then no one's able to speak anymore, so please, anything you want to say it during the public session. As I mentioned, 5 planning applications. The other thing I should mention is that because it's our annual meeting today, May is the annual meeting, it has a very long agenda with a lot of standard items that we have to do once a year by law, and so I'm hoping that the public session will be not too long. In fact, I'll make sure it's not too long. Hello, Angela, welcome.
Sorry, mate.
That's all right. Don't you worry. You can come and go as you wish.
Work.
You know, you can come and go as you wish. So let's start the public session. Who would like to raise something first? If we do the planning applications first, we know that we've got Mr. Furlonger.
Yes, that's
And
right.
do we have others for planning applications particularly from the applicants or the neighbours? Obviously other people have their opportunity to speak as well. Okay, well, if we look at the planning applications then, we've got no one actually here to talk about the two at Lordings then, I don't think. Does anyone else want to raise anything about the two at Lordings? The Lordings and the Lordings Oast, both of them have applied to put up detached garages. No? Little Acton Garage and Workshop, does anyone want to talk about that? No? Black Barn Farm, that is Mr. Furlonger. So if I just do a very sort of abbreviated form, it's basically to demolish two small dwellings and replace with one dwelling and put a new wall along the front, inside the hedge.
Yeah, and there's a garage as well. I noticed that there was an existing garage, but it got broken into and was falling down, and so I need to replace the garage.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. What would you like to say about it?
Well, just really open it up. If anybody has any questions about it, then I'm here to answer them,
right.
Primarily. And other than that, I think as you've got the planning application, you've seen what's involved in it. So I don't really have too much to add to that, other than it's I would sort of call from the supporting statement that I don't think I mentioned that it's a very it's a house designed with sort of low impact and low energy use, heavily in mind, which I think
okay.
Anyway, so there's going to be a ground source heat pump and it'll be heavily insulated and all that sort of thing, so it should be quite ecologically sound.
Okay. Obviously you own it. You're going to live in it once you've built the new house rather than the existing one. Did you live in the previous one?
No.
You just bought it, so now you can do the work and then move in.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And anybody going down that way during the period will see a lot of me because I'm going to be building rather a lot of it myself. For my sins.
Okay, a self-build in real terms. Okay.
That's right.
Does anyone else want to say anything about that particular one? Paul, you live next door.
Yeah, I'll sort of put on the hat as a consultee and next door neighbour, just to say that as far as we're concerned, I'm speaking for myself and my wife at the moment, we've been shown the plans, had fairly extensive conversations with Luke and his wife, and we're absolutely in favour. In fact, it suits us significantly because we did have a concern that there's a major tree on the boundary on our land where there potentially could be some serious damage, could actually kill the tree off, but because of the new design, the footprint, that's significantly lessened, if not completely removed. And the other thing, wearing the hat of a consultee, another consultee, Ian and Jackie Pine, who are away on holiday at the moment, did ask me to mention that they were fully supportive as well. They're the sort of opposite the property, so I'm just sort of saying that as a member of the public.
Okay.
Thanks.
Can I just clarify with you about the wall? You're going to build the wall inside the hedge.
Yes, that's right.
And I think I heard second hand that might be as a bit of a noise break from the traffic.
That's right. That's the idea.
Any effect on the hedge? I'm asking that because the hedge is obviously what people see from walking, driving down.
No, it won't be. We had an ecological survey done on the site as well, and we took the advice of the two chaps who came along, and it's a sort of it's a highway for nature apparently. So if we space it back from the hedge a little way, back into grass, which is so it's not a desert for nature, but essentially they said it'll have no impact if you build it.
And relative height?
Well, I think we'll plan to build it. I can't remember exactly what I put on the plans, but currently, if you drive past the hedge, you'll if and when the wall is approved, you will see 1.5 foot of wall above the hedge in red brick, but we're expecting that the hedge will continue to grow a bit. So possibly by the time you finish, we won't see anything at all.
And I suppose it's arguable that the wall would be a bit like if there was a house there.
Well, yes, I suppose so. Yeah.
Because your house, of course, is set back then.
Yes, yeah. We've tried to set the house well into the sort of centre of the plot, so that it has absolutely minimal impact, visual impact.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay. Anything else on that? No? The last planning application then is at Furners, which is where they're asking for a new orangery attached to the house on the back, although it's the place is at a slight angle. It's a listed building as well. Does anyone want to talk about Furners? Anyone here want to? I mean, we'll have our say afterwards. So, okay, we've done planning applications then. So, over to.
Could I just ask, while we're on Blackburn Farm, does any councillor want to ask questions? You'd normally ask whether councillors want to.
You're quite right, and I sort of thought there didn't seem to be any, but you're quite right. I should have done.
We did.
Yeah. I didn't get kicked.
I thought the plans were very self-explanatory. Yes, they're really helpful.
It's where Peter Robson used to be.
Good. Okay, so over to people who want to raise things. This is Roger.
On the assumption that all the councillors have asked the course this evening, could I congratulate you all in advance on the length of agenda on your stamina? Because I have never ever in my life seen an agenda as long as this one. And that's all I want to say.
You are right. You are right. It's horrendous, but unfortunately, most of it is legal obligation once a year. And of course, unless we stop our normal activity for the same month, which maybe is the answer, that's what we get.
You're not going to mind if we all disappear about midnight.
We've locked the door. We've locked the door.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments, please? Any other questions? Yes, Jane.
Yes, I'd just like to make a few points about the proposal that has been made about the removal of the hedge.
Oh yes.
From, I think, the bus shelter round to the hairdressers. I've had lots of conversations with people in the village and people outside the village, and most people don't realise there's a garden there, and other people have said, who wants to go and sit in a garden with no view? The whole point of sitting in a garden like that in the centre of the village is to watch the world go by, and that's, as I say, people that I've spoken to are 100% in favour of it.
Okay, good.
It's not an ancient hedge.
No. All right, thank you. I should just for clarity say that the proposal is all the way from the Hillview garage round to the hairdressers, but from the council's point of view, we haven't jumped in one way or another. We're just gathering information on the regulations at the minute, and then we'll start thinking, if we want to, about pros and cons and all the rest of it. But I think arguably there are 4 sections of hedge. That's to say the front of Coronation Field, the Poplar Road side of the green, the street side of the green, and the one around the back of the War Memorial. And if anything is done at all, and it's not clear whether it will be, but it could be any combination or, yes, all or none. So there are 4 bits of hedge really, and who knows where we're going. We're just taking it a step at a time. Last month we agreed that we would look into what was possible without any sort of preliminary judgment, and we're going to report back on that today and then see if councillors want to take the next step. But this is not the next step to definitely doing it, it's the next step to deciding whether we do it, and if so, how and when, and all the other details. But we'll get to that on the agenda. And other than that, I take your point. Phil?
The other point of view on this, of course, is that it makes it rather difficult. You reduce the pull the hedgerows down completely, the risk of children running out straight into the road.
Oh, well, it would have to be a fence or something. That goes without saying.
Yeah. That's something that we'll definitely obviously have in mind. I don't think we'll come to it if or when we get to that point. It's a point that has been raised elsewhere. We also think about ourselves naturally enough, and it's an area that will have to be considered in the detail if we do it.
And on the point that you were making earlier this evening about the hedgerow regulations as they stand, part of that's in the conservation area, isn't it?
Yes.
So doesn't that change
We'll
those
get to it.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there's no point saying we'll get to it because there's not going to be able to hear it when you get to it or comment. So we really need
Well,
to
you'll
answer
certainly
the
hear it
question now.
you'll certainly hear it when you're still here.
Comment on it. I mean, we need to answer that question in the public session. So if somebody's raised a concern, then they'll be strong, can't say anything, and they raise it. So if you've got some information that somebody's asking for, you should give it to the public.
Public sessions to raise issues, to make comments, and then we get on with the council meeting.
Well, if somebody's asking you a question, you should answer it.
I'm happy with the answer.
Well, I'd like to hear the answer.
And you'll be here, Miriam, I'm sure. We don't need to do everything twice, so let's just move on, please. That is a point that you've made, Phil, and it is in the agenda, and it is going to be dealt with.
Can I just make a comment? My name's Tim.
Please, Tim. Yes.
Country quarters on the west side of the village, and I've lived here for 14 years, and it was just by chance from you, Caroline, that I heard about this proposition at the end of last week, and I never knew this area, the field existed, or the little parkland bit, before this got raised, and I went up and had a look yesterday for the first time. I just assumed it was somebody's garden behind there, and I walked up and had a look. It's absolutely lovely. It's a gorgeous area. It's a lovely vista. I think if it was open up behind the War Memorial there, it would look absolutely wonderful. And I actually thought, when I saw the picture of it that Caroline sent me out, I thought it was actually partly a play area for children. And so I took my grandchild up there yesterday because I thought there'd be some things for children. And I was slightly disappointed that there wasn't anything for children there. And I subsequently found out there's actually another playground down the end of Forge Meads, which I didn't know existed either, right? But the point I'm trying to make is I think the vista would be absolutely lovely. I think it would open up the village wonderfully. I think it would look absolutely lovely.
Okay, well, that's, as I said earlier, that's something we will come to, not tonight, but in the future. There are some steps to go through before we get to any sort of decision. I mean, even if we were ready, and I'm not saying we are, even if we were ready to take a decision to do it now, we couldn't do it now because you have to stay out of hedges while the birds are nesting, if indeed there are any birds nesting. But all we are doing at the moment is trying to put things in place before we can work our way towards the pros and the cons and the issues and the options, and on we go. It's going to be a process. Please, Julian. Oh, sorry, Mary. Yes.
I like the photographs in the report because I think it's very much a motorist's eye view. If you're driving through a village at 30 miles an hour, it's lovely to see the open space from your car. But if you're actually an inhabitant using Coronation Field or whatever, it's very nice to have a hedge between you and the passing lorries. I think we need to look at it from both points of view.
Yeah, that's a point you made when you saw Yvonne and me the other day, and I thought that, in fact, I said at the time that was a new point, and it's in my mind that it is one of the.
I was tempted to go and take photographs of all the village greens. You know what you see if you're actually sitting.
Sure. No, I understand your point, and it is a fair one.
Well, my own personal, just another observation is that it's that park bit behind the War Memorial, which appears to be almost kind of like distinct from the field behind, right?
It was separated originally. There was a separation there with I think about 10 years ago that it was opened up. And there was obviously, if you look at the historical maps, there were separate titles. Our houses actually owned the field originally there. That was the mill field where the mill house, and so it was the field there. So a lot of these hedgerows sadly have been taken out. The one along the boundary of ours, I think, was taken out by the parish council many years ago. and the one between the two fields. But the existing hedgerows, I think that they're correct that the existing ones are not that old, some of them, but they do mark ancient field boundaries, and they are quite important in the Highwood OMB. One of the key features are our hedgerows. They what define the sort of mosaic of the OMB are those very hedgerows. So I think that we should be aware of that before we start taking things out. Obviously it's something that needs to be discussed, but there's lots of things to look into before any decisions are made. Indeed, it is the conservation area, and if you read the conservation area appraisals, it's saying that what's lacking is there should be more hedgerows, and they're talking particularly down the street and where they've been taken out, because there actually is no protection of hedgerows within the conservation area, so people can rip them out, which is quite sad. So maybe we need to be looking at all those things before rushing into making decisions, taking out sort of ancient field boundaries.
Okay, all right, thank you, Miriam. We're certainly not rushing, and yeah, we'll come to it in the agenda. So, more points, please. Anyone having anything else to say? Can I close the public session then? Okay, thank you very much for being brief. Thank you, everybody. So the next thing is to confirm the minutes of the last meeting. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Does anyone have any points of accuracy? No? So can I have someone to propose that we accept them? Paul? Seconded? George? Everyone all right? Thank you. You and Danny Mouse. Matters arising. Sorry, I've got to sign them. Oh, goodness. This all
Initial.
go.
Initial. And sign up there, please. Very much.
Matters arising. The first one that's actually on the agenda is report back on consultation with ABC on the hedge. And since it's on the agenda, item 21, we'll wait till then. Facebook. Matters arising on Facebook.
Yes, just that Facebook. We have a Facebook page.
Are we all on there? Are we all...
Well,
Can you see who's following?
I haven't been informed that you're following. I have been informed, got that Sue was following, and John Rivers is following. I haven't got that anyone else is following.
I joined up, but I think that I'm not quite doing anything else. I'm a Facebook virgin, so I don't know what I'm doing.
But thank you for doing that, Ian, for us.
Well, thank John. He came round and set it all up. It's just if you've got any ideas of what you think, I could be, it's difficult to know. But as you've noticed, the things that I have put on are things that have come to me that I think
the key for it, and obviously we're learning
useful
as we go, especially Clark here, and me more so, is that we have the opportunity now of growing a communication medium which is more immediate than Outlook, because Outlook's very good, but it takes 6 weeks from when you put it in to the end of the period when the next one arises, and that's always going to be very difficult.
The other thing you'll be able to do is put the links into the appropriate web page for things like minutes or agenda on there. You don't have to put the whole thing, you just put the link and it'll automatically very quickly go through. One point was made to me that someone asked me what time the meeting started and where the agenda was, and I thought, it's on the website, isn't it? I had a look at it, pretending I didn't sort of know, if you know what I mean. And I think the phraseology might be changed slightly on the website, say next meeting agenda or something like that, because it's
updated. I think it's
it just made very clear to those that aren't used to using it that the very next meeting, this is it. This is the agenda.
I think the website's developed because it's developed and got a lot more on it now. It has begun to suffer from what all websites do as they grow. which it needs a bit of spring cleaning
Yeah.
and tidying up. And you don't know really until you've done it. It grows like topsy, and you find some of the branches are over heavy, and you need to change them. So we know that's a job to do. Unfortunately, neither Yvonne nor I am particularly into that stuff, and we have to find a way of getting it done.
I just need time.
Sorry?
I just need time to do
That as well, yes. Community-led plan reports on the matters arising.
Don't look at me, I haven't got any community-led.
I thought that was
Plan
one.
reports.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrongly. This is not something that, it's for the opportunity for me from the task list, that's what we agreed.
Yes, so because it was on
If you
that
remember,
people
yes,
were going to...
We were going to do it, we were doing it under the task list each month, and we decided that with a long agenda we didn't need to go through all 11 of them, but community-led plan reports is the important one, and you've already raised the point with me, David. Tim wanted to have a copy of that one, yes. Has everyone here that's going through with Voices team members got the original reports that their teams did? I mean, we've got the green, you'll have the green thing, no doubt, this one.
Yeah.
But there are original reports that are longer than that. Have you got all of them?
No, I
don't think so, no.
Well, you pick them up from the Voices website is where they are, and they also came out, they're the ones that when we were doing them on each section, when we had them on the agenda each section each time, we produced the report at the time.
So if each of you go to the Voices website, which you can Google, and it's on Hugo Fox, then you will find those reports there. Because Roger put them all there at the time. You may sometimes find, if you go into some particular group, communications as an example, that you click on one, you actually get minutes of the meeting, and then you click on another one under the same heading, and you'll get the actual report. Okay? Because this is something that we do want to be pressing on with, and as I say, David's already come back about his discussion with Tim Heath. And did you meet the other members of the team as well?
Yeah, so we've had our first meeting. And
excellent.
We've progressed quite a few actions, actually.
Good. So you're in the lead.
Are we?
Yeah,
long way.
Yeah.
Well, other people
only,
need to try.
Last night, I was too excited.
Other people need to try and catch up.
We've covered a lot of. So what I was going to, one of the things I was going to ask Jeremy, as we progress through these, so by ragging, obviously green shows which. So where we progress things and we move things forward, can we propose to change the ragging?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
I think what I need to do then is, and if you put it on the agenda next month as things start moving, even though summer's coming, we need to bring that back up and just spin through them, because otherwise we'll have, it's the usual sort of thing that everything has to break out to get into details, otherwise nothing happens, and as soon as it does, you lose track of where you are, and you need to keep bringing it back to the middle again.
Is it possible then to have a copy of this electronically, so we can keep it updated?
Yes,
I think we need a master copy, don't we?
And then
otherwise we'll
I've got the master at the minute on my
so
machine,
someone needs to update
and I
the master.
think I did it on Apple numbers. Now it can be exported, but how well it'll export, I don't know.
If we could actually, can we all access Google?
Yeah.
Because we set it up as a Google document, we could all have access to the master and keep the one document updated.
Yeah, I'm not a signed-in member of Google, and I think that's what I tripped over once before, and you sent me an emailed version of something instead, because as soon as I clicked on it, I had to be a member.
I will get you signed up. Don't know.
It would just, in order for progressing work electronically, Google will just give us the means, the tools to be able to do that.
Right. Okay, well you need to send us around a script on how to sign ourselves up, because every time it says I can sign up with Google, I avoid it like the plague at the minute.
I'll have a go.
I only went on Facebook because I felt I had a professional obligation, having suggested that the council should do it. But I think it's a secret. I did think in terms of matters arising, little 4, it's not on the agenda, just very briefly, the comment on Tilehouse Farm that's gone to the inspector. We said that we would put in a comment to the inspector, and it went in just after last month, after we'd agreed it all. And I've already done that one, number 5. That's what we did as number 3. Okay.
I've got one too.
Please.
I've got one to add. Heard from the volunteer community support warden team that Lee Phelan has been accepted for training.
Oh, very great.
So she's got to have the CRB
the
checks
DRB,
that use
the
DRB, and then training.
DBS.
But I understand
DBS.
Let me just put that down, DBS.
Disclosure and barring service.
That's the one.
Okay, thank you. They're waiting until they've got them all sorted out in the different areas before, and then they'll have them all together, so it won't be one at a time, so it might not be quite yet.
It's because they agreed, they didn't get very many, so they agreed to defer the closing date, but I have stressed to Jo today that she should pass back the point that they don't want, in my view, they don't want to leave it too long because enthusiasm wanes then. And also it's the best part of the year for weather. You wouldn't think so today, but they get on with it, yes. But anyway, I saw her at the breakfast. She seemed to be very pleased and ready to get on with it. We know she's had DBS before because of the other things she does with the children, so there's nothing really in the way, which was good news. Okay, so that's all the matters arising, isn't it? So if we move on then to the long list of electing members to working parties, first one down is the village caretaker. Now, up till now, I've always been on it from the start, and I anticipate carrying on. We used to have 2 councillors on it, which used to be John and I. Is anyone else?
Excuse me, I'm on it too.
Oh, well, of course, I said councillors though.
Yes, but I'm on it.
Oh, Yvonne is
I'm
on
not
it as
on
the
everything.
clerk.
Yes.
Well, you're on all of them, really, aren't you?
No.
Just about.
In that respect.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
There's quite a few here.
Yeah.
Should we do it by exception? Because some of us are already on them, and if we say, "Are you willing to carry on?" rather than go through each
that's
one.
good. Yeah, I can go with that.
That's right.
Okay, so let's go round then. George, you used to be on the Village Hall is further down, so ignore that for a minute.
Yeah.
Sue used to be on and yours isn't there either. You do Cemetery Churchyard, don't you? Yeah. Can we put you down for that? We'll do a block vote at the end, like the party does. David, you used to do open spaces.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Is that a run? Okay. Yeah. David. Planning, we don't really have a working
It's everyone.
party.
I've put everyone down. It just needs to be there, otherwise people think, what happens to planning?
Yeah, okay, everyone. Finance, I am on, and we could have a second one if anyone wants to do it. And,
I'm on that as well.
And of course the clerk, well, she does it all. Highways you used to do, Paul.
Yep.
Okay. Public rights the way I do, and I can continue because Elon does all the work there. Housing, we haven't actually had activity in housing in the past, really, have we? We had one set up and nothing really ever happened. Because it was all around the...
Paul, David and George, if you remember.
Yeah.
Colin, of course, is housing.
He's doing housing for voices.
So wouldn't it be logical if he does that as well?
Indeed.
Volunteer him in his absence.
Entirely logical.
He's elected,
So it's question mark Colin. We have to ask him next time.
Instead of or as well as?
Probably instead of, I think.
I'm happy to step away from housing and join you with the village caretaker one.
Okay, David, come on to caretaker. The only thing there, David, although it probably is all right, what we've done in the past is had the meetings during the day, but obviously it'd have to be when you were available, or we have to move them to the evening. Thing is, Alf comes to them.
Work at home now.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah.
That's good. We can take your hours up.
Going to volunteer Alan to
Alan
work
is
with
going
Colin on the housing.
Okay.
I didn't want you to feel left out.
Do we need 2 of us?
Well, I don't know. There were a couple before.
Okay.
3 before, but I don't think it was ever really used. It was one that we had just in case, but it wasn't
I think something came up and we thought we ought to have one, and then the issue disappeared again. So can I then just run through it here? There's myself and David and Yvonne on caretaker. Finance is me and Yvonne. Does anyone else want to come on to finance? It doesn't happen very often. It's mostly at budget time. And,
I don't mind helping out on it.
Okay, Paul. Okay. Planning is everyone. Housing is Colin and Alan. Open spaces is David. Highways is Paul. Public rights away is me and very much Yvonne. And churchyard is Sue and cemetery. Can we have a proposal and a seconder for that list? David and Paul. And everyone happy with that? Good. Now we have 2 seats at the CALC meetings, number 8 on the agenda. 2 seats at the CALC meetings. I go to that and have done for quite a long time with John, when John used to be the chairman of it. Does anyone else? There are evening meetings in Ashford. Does anyone else want to join in with that? I can normally go, so and I report back, as you know.
I was going to say, if nobody else does want to, I can do it. If you can't,
occasionally,
yes,
that's
when you.
Indeed, and Sue, the secretary of it, has already welcomed that. So okay.
Because I know that.
Okay.
Someone as a number 2. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, to have chairman and vice chairman backing him up makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Right, that's that one, number 8. Number 9, the one representative of the Police Parish Forum or similar, if it ever gets going again, yourself. Is everyone all right with that?
Mm-hmm.
A representative of the Village Hall Management Committee.
I'm quite happy to carry on.
George has got the short straw there.
Finish.
Oh, good. Oh, we're looking forward to you finishing.
Too quickly.
And Tenterden Day Centre is a Sue special. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so can we just have a proposal and a seconder for that little list then? That's the CALC and the Parish Police Parish Forum and the Management at Village Hall and the Tenterden Day Centre. Sue will propose that and David will second it. Good.
Could I just bring in here, Police Parish Forum, I mean, it's never actually happened. You were wondering how councillors
but not
felt.
for a while. I did go to them.
Yes, but not
for a while.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I just think that the value of when it was going was really useful. We have a big gap between what Dan reports and what this rather strange group that is talking about rural policing and keeps on reporting on what's going on in Dover and what have you. There's a big gap there. So the problem has been that inspectors responsible for this area seem to change as frequently as our PCSO. They keep going and they keep promising, and we get into touch with, haven't got in touch with all of them because they keep changing. They keep saying they're going to reinstate it and so on. My thought was that we as a council agree that, as we've said it here, to progress with that or whatever form. And then I thought, now that we voted me to do that, I will approach the PCC, Matthew, and say, we'd like your support in getting this going, because the feedback that we've had on him has been very good. That's no disrespect to his predecessor, but he comes from a policing family, and he seems to understand, much better networked with the resource and know exactly what's going on, and the police staff have a regard and a respect for him. So I think that's probably worth, now that there's a formal opportunity to do that. And maybe we offer to host the first one. The last one was in Tenterden, in the Baptist Church. And they had a turnout of about 25 or so, of which 5 or 6 were serving officers or PCS, of any one sort or another, and a sergeant. So we could even host it here to get it going. But that's my suggestion. At least have one crack at it.
I think you might well find that he is positive. The question, of course, is that he doesn't have operational control and whether they pick it up, but he can nag them.
Yeah, he can say this seems like a good idea. Over to you, Chief Constable, and then it'll eventually get down somewhere.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if we move on to planning applications, then the first one is the proposed detached garage at Lordings. How do you feel?
No problem.
Everyone's happy with it? Fine. So we'll support that. Any comments to make on Yvonne's response? I mean, it seemed to me there wasn't much to say.
No, it just all seemed really logical, didn't it?
Indeed.
What they're trying to do there.
The Lording's Oast is the same, a proposed detached garage. Indeed. The Little Acton at Acton Lane, the erection of the detached double garage and the workshop. I must admit, I thought the application was a bit obscure, that one, I think, but unless I've mixed it up with a different one, but no, that was the one. But I mean, it wasn't terribly complicated. And they've withdrawn. Is it Little Acton that withdrew the entrance move? It was.
Acton.
Was it? No,
it's not. It's the opposite. It's one on the other side of the road.
Okay,
It's not. Yeah, it was the granary.
Okay.
Granary, Little Acton. It's opposite.
I looked at the time. Okay, so are we supportive of that?
Yeah.
Good. Any comments for it? No. The next one is Blackbarn Farm, the one we talked about with Luke here, Mr.
Furlonger.
Say again? Furlonger, yes, I was struggling to remember. Sorry. What do people think about that?
Seemed to me it would improve the site, which is looking a bit dilapidated in the photographs.
It's a bit sort of
must be an improvement,
particularly
if you live next door.
It's good to hear about the hedge remaining and the wall.
Yeah.
So, no, I support it.
Any other comments? All supporting?
Yeah.
So we fully support it and no comments to put in. Okay. And the last one is Furness, the orangery at the back, in an oak frame design.
I did have a letter from Mr. and Mrs. McLaughlin. They couldn't make it, but they've just added, we have a large family and friends who often visit. Our current dining area is just too small to accommodate people comfortably. We would very much like to build a single-storey orangery to the rear of the house to provide a larger space for entertaining and general use. The proposed orangery will not be visible from the street, and so the fine period aspect at the front of Furness will not be disturbed. Our immediate neighbours on both sides have indicated informally that they have no objection to our plans. Finally, as Furness is a Grade 2 listed building, we expect Ashford Borough Council to be especially rigorous in their evaluation of our planning application, although they have given a preliminary indication that they have no objection in principle to a single-storey extension on the proposed site.
Right. I mean, a listed building will be the hardest part, I think.
Very sympathetic, actually.
Yeah, I think so. You can't see it from the road.
No. Indeed. And like is often the case with these things, if there'd been an orangery there, it would be listed and everyone would be happy. And as it is, there wasn't one there, so they didn't worry about it. But yeah, it seemed reasonable, didn't it? So, is everybody happy to support that?
Yeah.
Any comments to make? No? Okay. So that's the planning applications whizzed through them. Number 13, unlucky for some, to consider and agree parts 13 to the end of standing orders. So this is the third episode of going through these. Yvonne put a few points in her email of 8th of May as to what was to be done, and essentially, apart from removing of the personnel committee, it was mainly just tidying up. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
It was mainly just tidying up the sort of print a bit. I think there may have been odd commas and that, but that's, we went through it. We didn't find anything else. So, is everybody happy with them? No concerns? Okay. And so, can I ask then that we formally vote just for tidiness? We've done it in 3 sessions. To formally vote now, because we have to do it annually, that we've reviewed and approved, with obviously the changes, the standing orders as a whole. Okay, so can I have someone to propose? George, second, Sue, and is everyone happy that we've reviewed and we've got intact standing orders with the changes we've just made to the last piece, and obviously the earlier ones as well? Good, thank you. Now, to consider and agree the financial regulations as recommended by the Finance Working Party, which was Yvonne and myself the other day. Yvonne found that because on her system the numbering went all completely doolally on the one that came from the centre, now of course I'm such, she heroically retyped the whole thing. There are one or two little glitches as a result of that, I'm afraid, and almost inevitable. I haven't gone through it word by word, but I have spotted some going through it today, and Yvonne can obviously correct them. It's mainly typing, spelling mistakes. And I can explain them to her afterwards. I don't think any of them are of interest to you. There are one or two things I wanted to bring to your attention before we hopefully agree the revision. The first one is in budgetary and control and authority to spend, because we're entitled to diverge off of the standard form. What we've largely sought to do here is start with a standard form, and then when we do something that's different, if that's okay and it makes sense, then we've obviously written to do what we do. Do what you say and say what you do. In 4.1, we've amended that slightly, and you ought to be aware of that because of the way the caretaker scheme works. So we've got expenditure on revenue items may be authorised up to the amounts included for that class of expenditure in the approved budget. That's standard. The authority is to be determined by all items by the council, which is when we authorise here monthly, except items from the caretaker's budget of less than £1,000, because this is where Alf goes out and he has to buy this and buy that and buy the other in consultation either with Yvonne or with the caretaker committee, okay? Because obviously with an operational real-time system you don't want to say, oh well Alf, you can't do anything until the next council meeting. So that's been put in there. Mostly of course it's well less than £1,000, it's plastic bags or whatever, and regular items previously agreed, this is back to standard, including salaries, payments to the taxman, village hall fees. Such authority is to be evidenced by a minute or by an authorisation slip duly signed by the clerk. That's the ones that happen every month. We know we don't authorise the salary, it just gets paid and the cheques are signed. Contracts may not be desegregated to avoid controls imposed by these regulations. That is standard. So really the point is that we do have a divergence for the caretaker scheme, because otherwise operationally it wouldn't work very well. A few spelling mistakes will come too. That is really just to make it read better. There's slight difference of word order. Point to bear in mind, it is, I think we added it in this one, any corporate credit card or trade card account opened by the council will be specifically restricted to use by the clerk. That is the standard words, but we've added in and the caretaker in the case of the UK Fuels fuel card. In other words, when he fills his van, he doesn't get money for it, he puts it on the UK Fuels card and that gets charged back to the council. And should be subject to automatic payment in full at the end.
Does he buy fuel for the mowers and things as well?
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't say when he fuels his van on there, does it?
No, it just says in the case of the UK Fuels
card.
If it said that, you'd have to add the other bit. It doesn't say
no, it's just fuel card.
I don't know if we have to tick boxes on the form, but obviously he's buying petrol for the mowers and he's buying diesel for the van.
He's getting, it might be obvious, but he's getting a VAT receipt for the fuel, isn't he?
UK Fuels, when you get your monthly doodah, I get a proper invoice and it's all, if you find it in there. Yes, if you on your thing, it shows the VAT.
Paperwork you get.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have paperwork. I couldn't do it.
No, to claim VAT back, you need a VAT receipt.
Exactly.
And the UK Fuels is. Are you saying that is a VAT receipt? Because the supplier, so you go to Jemson's, right? You get a VAT receipt, which breaks out the VAT, but it has the VAT number of Jemson's on it. No, that's fine.
But no. So you can see exactly what we get. He gives me those receipts, and I get that.
That's fine. Okay. I just thought it was a credit card statement you're getting.
Oh no, it's not a credit card.
Individual statement, well, a card receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yes, it's all in. And it gets to the mowers and the van, it's all separated out, so we know what's going where.
Good. Okay, in 11 contracts, there's a slight change I think is needed to make it clear. This is entering into contracts. There's one above 25,000 in value, which I don't think we will ever do. Then you get down to the stage where the clerk should obtain 3 quotations, price descriptions of the proposed supply. Okay, but where the value is below 3,000 and above 100, it just at the minute says where the value is below 3,000 and 100. So it's between, okay. So that will make that clear. And as I said, there are a few spelling things. Yes, bribery is one of them, yes. That's like Barbary, isn't it? Yeah. And there's about half a dozen, but actually pretty reasonable considering Yvonne just did that in a rush. So... No, I just didn't. You said it took you 4 hours.
I did.
Yeah, no.
It's hardly rushing, was it?
No.
You mean it could have been done in 2? Okay, right. So, we're considering and agreeing the financial regulations as recommended. If I can have a proposer and a seconder for them, which you've had on your email. Is that all right? Proposed by Paul, seconded by George. Is everyone happy? Yes, so that's good. Thank you very much for that. That was a chore, I must say, when we did that. I did a double chore when Yvonne had to type it. So to review interactions with the residents and the public, this is where...
Sorry, can I just...
Go on.
Can I...
Sorry, go back. Yep.
Yes, 15. Have we done... Have I missed 15?
No.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Oh, thank you.
I saw financial and I jumped one. To review the effectiveness of the system of financial internal control and the internal audit.
Well, this is basically, are you happy with the way things are done, the way I produce these? What I have picked up from going through the regulations, I picked up that in future perhaps we ought to, it says each quarter a councillor other than a chairman be appointed to verify the bank reconciliations. Well, I do a bank reconciliation every month with the statement, which is just automatic for me, but it is saying that a councillor other than the chairman ought to verify that that's been done on a quarterly. So I'm going to suggest we do that.
Do that on a rolling basis, really?
Yes.
Sure.
Yep, I think they do say that it should be.
That.
And
so
they
that
also
could be done at a council meeting if you bring your book, and that would be the best, I suppose.
Yes, yes. As long
I mean,
as,
outside the council meeting, but the same night.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. And also to produce a quarterly statement. You know, I do the half-yearly statement. They suggest a quarterly. And they also suggest that expenses get paid quarterly because I do those half-yearly. So those are the things that I consider reviewing and suggest we do.
It's just a bit more work, unfortunately, but for Yvonne.
When you say they suggest, how strongly is their suggestion?
Well, if you've read them, it says what you should do.
That's what you should do.
The problem here, George, I think, is that they've written them for all third-tier councils, and some third-tier councils are turning over £1 million a year, and we're turning over, I suppose, with the caretaker scheme, about 50,000, aren't we?
And we are in that, and especially with the cemetery coming up, we're going to, turn over with that.
Incidentally, some a lot less than us.
We need to look at your workload then in that case.
Okay, so is everybody happy with that? You'll minute that then? Good. Okay, and the internal, that does actually include, and the internal audit. We have David Chesson as the internal auditor. I don't think we have to specifically reappoint him.
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do. Is it down here? Oh, it's probably in the annual thingy, isn't it? Which we're going to come to.
Yes. Well, I suppose we can...
Failing that, we could reappoint him now if people are happy. Can I have a proposal? David and Sue. Everyone happy with David Chesson, internal auditor? Good. So, are we free of that one?
Yes, thank you.
Review interactions with residents and the public. This is where we start having to do certain things every year. So we wrote that on the 13th of September 2016. And this one, you'll notice, has got the formal thing at the bottom when we agreed it. Some of them we haven't actually gone back and done that, but we'll pick all of that up when Yvonne puts together the file of all the documents for us.
Then they become an annual rather than that one's not quite, is it?
Which actually, as we gradually get things to slot into place, everything should get easier, and we should all know where we are. Then the next one is
Sorry, Jeremy, before we move on from that, I'm just conscious that when we wrote this, we weren't recording meetings.
But we had a separate procedure for that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether we could amalgamate it.
Or not procedure, maybe we had a separate paper for that.
We did, but I'm just wondering whether, because this is interactions with residents and the public, I'm just wondering whether we need to put a sentence in here about meetings being recorded. I know we've got a separate statement, but it just seems sensible to me that
tie the two up.
Yeah, it should be in here now that we've changed the process.
Right, fine.
So
It's only going to be
3.2, we put it in there, because that talks about the formal meetings and setting aside a period for residents to speak and raise any question.
Yeah. Sure, good.
Add a line
good point. Good point. Thank you. That's a good point, David. Thank you. That's why we have to review them, of course, for having these ideas come up. The next one is review the Council's procedures for handling requests made under the Freedom of Information Act 2000 and the Data Protection Act 1998.
Well, that's something we haven't got an actual, but when I do get requests, depending on what it is, how easily I can do these things, it's usually done as when I'm asked for them.
There is a guidance from
it has to be done within a certain number of days.
You get 28 days or a month, one or the other, for freedom of information. We have had a freedom of information request in the last few months, which was handled.
I think it has to be 28 days, doesn't it?
So I usually try and do it as soon as I can, but it depends where I am and what it is.
Yeah.
Data Protection Act I don't think has come up really, but it could do. Okay.
There is a big change coming in that next March. The Data Protection Act, just so people are aware of it, it's called GDPR, and it has some major implications for data and the DPO, data protection officers, all sorts of pieces in there. I don't think it's something that we have to particularly worry about. In essence, we just have to show that the data we hold, we take all possible reasonable steps to protect against somebody getting hold of it or misusing it, hacking it, whatever you want to call it. Just that we put in there that we're aware of it and we're doing our best to comply with the GDPR. It's not a directive; it's an actual regulation.
Sure. Okay. One of the ironies, of course, is that we get caught between. I can't think of the two Greek names involved, but we've got data protection telling us to keep everything to ourselves, and then our obligations to be as transparent and public as possible, such as this evening. But there we are, two different directions. Okay, so do we want anything more at the moment on that, or can we just carry on with Yvonne handling as required?
Is that what it says?
There's nothing to tell us, but I mean, as I say, there's guidance from NALC, and if we need to, we've looked that up in the past. To review the Council's policy for dealing with press and media. Now, this is one where you see that the one I got off certainly still says draft on the top, and obviously we will.
Mine doesn't, obviously.
But that's the one you sent to us.
That's the one that was
on your computer.
Right.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. Anyway, we will get that tidied up. But
it's got the date on the
1st of November.
Yes.
Does anyone want any revisions? Otherwise, are we happy with that? Can someone propose? And
it's worked, hasn't it?
It was actually done when we expected the thing to come up over Pipers, and we never. I don't think we ever did get anything, did we? But we were at least prepared, and it's good practice anyway. So Alan, I think, is proposing there, and David seconding. Good. Right. The next one is to complete and agree the contact list. There were one or two little.
Well, I've resolved one today,
which is,
and that's the Jeremiah Greenland Trust is Rod Chalmers.
Okay, so
that's
want
not
any
question mark.
marks.
No.
Yeah, I took that off.
So I have 2, which is the book group and the table tennis.
Right. Now, the book group is slightly more complicated when I asked Madam, who used to be in it, because it has sort of grown and then fractured. The one that she is still in is the original one that's broken off again. Yes, right. It's like U3A. In fact, she was there this morning, but I mean, that wasn't even in Wittersham, that was down in Canberra. As I said, there was a little one that started with her in it and about 3 others, and then it suddenly grew and grew, and then it fractured, and the original ones have sort of gone back to the original. And I don't know I said to her, what's happened to the other lot? She said, I don't know, they may not be doing anything.
Well, given that we can update this as and when we want to, I suggest no disrespect to the book club, but if there's multiple book clubs, it would be a bit confusing. And this is supposed to provide.
Yep. So we'll take the book group
for the
out
moment until
which is what
clear.
I thought. Yeah. Does anyone know about table? You play table tennis?
I come on the Monday night to table tennis. It's Peter Leach is the.
He's the organiser, is he?
I'm sure I've got his email address and phone number somewhere.
Could you let me?
Can you ask him?
Thank you.
Okay.
We walk sometimes, but not.
We know that we'll find out the chairman of the Wittersham Sports Club in another day or two, because I think they're hoping to have their first committee meeting after the elections. Can I also just suggest that some of the email addresses aren't actually entered as email addresses where they're not underlined, unless they are on yours and not on mine. So they need to be entered as whatever sort of code it is that makes an email address click. And the other thing was we might be able to get hold of Kathy Head's phone number, because the Wittersham Lunch Club, they want people to ring when they're going to it.
Okay.
And that's good then. Everyone happy with that? Yeah. Okay. Good. So we go ahead with that. Consider and agree the quote received for SIDS and apply for funding. Now this is one where a couple of queries were raised, I know, by Paul and George, and David had a suggestion, which I must admit is the one that I had kind of made a judgment that I thought was probably the answer, but I don't actually know. It's where the 4 poles cost £700 odd each, which is crazy, except I think that probably includes planting them, which is David's suggestion, but we don't know that. The thing is, there's no planting anywhere else.
No,
and since it actually hires a hydraulic breaker and a thing for checking that you're not going through the electric cable, it does imply that this does include the installation. And I think that's just the way they did it.
Yeah.
But you're right, it should
but
be.
It does.
It should
needs
be
to specify it, doesn't it?
It should be checked.
Yeah. It's 2 hours labour.
Someone was building me a house and they just quoted for materials and not for actually any labour on it.
Yeah.
So you want me to?
Given that it was such a, I mean, what was it in total?
It's a large part of the total.
It's almost £8,000 in total.
Yeah.
And while the principle of it, I completely agree with it. What we're trying to do, it's a huge chunk of change out of a ever decreasing budget.
But the key here is, of course, that we are aiming to get money from KCC, and this is KCC's
My question is in 2 parts then. First of all, do we think we're going to get all the money? And I suppose we don't have to apply for it. And secondly, in the spirit of the previous section 14 or whatever it was, should we get more than one quote? And I put forward 2 others. It seemed to be other county councils in different parts of the country. Although the ones that we have had a quote from, albeit expensive, seem to have are claiming a very impressive client list. And of course, the one that sticks out is KCC. So
it's KCC's supplier in effect.
Yeah. So
and of course we have to have KCC. We have to have KCC approve whatever we do, because it's on highways. It's on their ground actually.
So all I was saying is, what I was going to say was that it's a big chunk of change. If KCC are going to cover it all, and it's their supplier, and this is the normal costing that they, I didn't think those polls just seem to be disproportionate. As long as those all check out, that's fine. But what we don't want is a great big bill to come back and bite us and they say, oh, you can have a third of it or what have you.
No,
So,
all we're
how
doing
we
at the
manage
minute,
that?
I think, is taking it to the next stage, because obviously we can't approve the money until we know how much money we're going to get from KCC.
Right.
I don't think we'll get all of it. I think we will get a good lump of it. But how big a good lump is, obviously remains to be seen. And clearly we've got a strong degree of pressure from the village to do more about speeding. I mean, we could say, well, will it do anything about speeding? Well, it may and it may not. But at least it is endeavouring to do something about speeding, and we know that it is a hot topic for people around the 30 limit. So I think that if we can agree tonight, so go on, please.
Originally, we weren't definitely going for the one in Swan Street. That was my only thought. It's the ones we were really concerned with were the two and the one down by the school. So that was my thought. Did you want to drop one of the poles?
My thought was, if you miss out Swan Street, you know, all you've done is you've spent you spent more than 3/4 of the money, you've spent 3/4 of the pole money and all of the rest, and you've just said, well, Swan Street doesn't count, which is not very smart, really.
Thing. And if we're then forced to pay part of it, then we have to reconsider maybe and prioritise. But right now, if it's worth doing, and I completely agree with the principle behind it, it's worth doing 100%.
Okay.
Sure. Well, assuming we get a good slice of the money, we can certainly afford it, and it is taking a step forward. It is one of the issues on the what do they call it in the community-led plan? It was. Did they call it traffic or highways or something? There was one of them that was transport.
Speeding through the village.
Transport, you know, it's very much in there.
I did notice that there's also available a trolley, a portable one, but I'm not sure Alf would really appreciate pushing that around the village.
There are ones that I've seen where they sit on a tripod and they really just stand them on the grass and then take them away and put them somewhere afterwards. This is a different approach to that. And no doubt there are pros and cons. This all came out originally of Kent County Council saying, in a thing that I think came to all the councils. Certainly we got a circular which said, you know, this is the latest thing on speed checks. Have a look at it. It was in effect saying, have a look at it and let us know if you want to do it.
So can I just ask, this quote we've got here, I can't recall, does this include the data as well?
Yes.
It does.
Yes, complete sign package for portable.
Yeah. Are they proven?
With data collection facility.
We've got is there any evidence to suggest that they actually do make a material difference?
He said the chap that came out said yes, there is.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. Yes.
Not from the manufacturer.
He said they have found it does make a difference.
Is
How
there
much
an
of a
ongoing
difference? I don't
management
know.
charge? Have I missed that? Because if you put it out, what have you? Is there a maintenance charge? Is there? Because if it's a data provider, then you pay your one-off capital cost, but presumably there's some sort of maintenance, and how long does it last, and what happens if something goes wrong?
Do we need to insure it?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, all those things.
It is going to cost us money, but then that's what we get money for.
Yeah.
But that's something else we need to know before we get to that point of making the decision, what the ongoing cost is.
It can certainly break. I mean, there's no question about that.
It's also useful to know what sort of format the data comes in. Because we need to buy additional packages to interpret the data and read it.
True. Can I ask that we are happy in principle to be proceeding in terms of talking to either KCC or the manufacturer about exactly how it works, while also putting in for the grant aid from wherever we can, KCC mainly. What we don't want to do is to have a repetition of what we did with KCC just recently, where we got some money and then didn't want it, which was embarrassing, because obviously Mike will be our lead on this. He may be able to get some out of a highways budget, but the first call will probably be on his budget. Okay, so can I say that we are happy with that? We do want to go ahead with it. We're just getting the last bits of document. Obviously we'll have to approve it it's according to how much money we need. Eventually, it'll have to be a question of are we going to pay that amount of money? But apart from that, obviously, if we can't get the money we want, I don't think we're going to get the 7.4. I don't see why we would. You know, I would like to be getting half of it, and if we got more than half of it, that would be very happy.
And what's their lifespan? How long before they have to be replaced?
We don't know. It's a perfectly fair point, and I don't know.
So we're going to review again once we know what contribution
we
Ashford will.
Kent, we'll have to go nap on it or not when we actually know how much it's going to cost us. We can't authorise that in advance. What I want really is that we are keen to do it, rather than we're thinking about we might do it, and then someone goes and finds the money and puts our name against it, and then we say, oh no, we changed our minds. It's a bit difficult.
I think we need to have a realistic picture though what the ongoing costs are in terms of batteries being replaced and maintenance and all those things, as well as the capital outlay.
It will cost. There's no question. It will cost us money, but to be honest, we are not scraping for every pound at the moment.
Though we don't yet know the final cost of the cemetery.
No, well that's a big capital sum rather than a running sum. Yeah. And there is one for sure.
I would really hate us to have to cut corners on something as major as that.
Sure.
If it was 2,000 or 3,000.
We think we've got enough of a contingency, and as you will see when you get to the money, we have got some headroom there anyway. We have prepared for the cemetery over the last several years, so that we got our we got ourselves straight in advance. Okay. Right, that was Sid's. Okay. Next one is the hedge, 21. To consider next steps in the review of the value of a possible project to remove part or all of the hedge at Coronation Field to green. Now, first thing is a bit of matters arising. The clerk and I have both had discussions with ABC. Do you want to go first?
Yes, after the last meeting I asked, he said, could you tell me whether there are any restrictions on removing hedges in a conservation area, please? And I got an email back from Planning Help to say a hedgerow in a conservation area is not normally protected. However, trees growing within a hedge or an old hedge which has become a line of trees of reasonable height may be protected. Well, this hedge doesn't have the trees in it.
And it's not that old.
And then went on to tell me about the trees and the diameter of the thing, so that doesn't apply. If the hedges are countryside hedges, agricultural hedges between or around fields, the removal will be regulated under the Hedgerow Regulations 1997, which obviously it isn't that either. So that's what they came back with.
Yep. Okay, I spoke again today because I understood or misunderstood from you, you'd only really got the answer on the conservation area. I asked specifically whether they believed there were any other regulations that would apply, because they can come from here, there and everywhere. I said we were aware of the hedgerow regulations. The lady only directed me to the point on the Ashford website, which comes back to the hedgerow regulations again. And to be clear, application of regulations, that's to say regulation 3 of the hedgerow regulations 97, subject to paragraph sub 3, these regulations apply to any hedgerow growing in or adjacent to any common land, which would be our village green, protected land, which is a nature reserve or SSSI under their definitions, or land used for agriculture, forestry, or the breeding or keeping of horses, ponies, or donkeys. It's none of them, under them. That's the regulations that were brought in under the 95 Act to stop farmers taking hedges out left, right, and centre to make big fields. Incidentally, and it's a point that someone in the public mentioned earlier as well, these regulations do not apply to any hedgerow within the curtilage or marking a boundary of the curtilage of a dwelling house. I only mention that because there was criticism of people taking out hedges in the conservation area. Regulations don't apply. So hedgerow regs don't apply. although I know Miriam thought they might do, and conservation area doesn't apply, although David Lewis said to me he thought they would. So what we've been asked to do, or what's been suggested, and I plan to do with Yvonne, if you're happy, is that the lady today said, because I said, look, we wanted to discuss it so we knew where they thought they stood, and they don't think there's an issue. I said we'd obviously need it in writing before we went any further, and she said, well, you really need to get on to the tree officer, and I've got his email address. He is the expert in those matters. So that's what we're going to do.
I have done.
You have done, yes.
Yes, this afternoon I emailed him.
He was out of the office today, but so we will get an answer back. All that is doing is simply saying, okay, it's worth considering the next step. You know, if there are no things... What we said last month was, if we're not allowed to do it, there's no point wasting our time. Yeah. If we're allowed to do it, we can then think about whether we want to do it, and if so, how, what, when, and all the rest of it. So that was the part that was the matters arising. Now, the next steps, in my view, and this is what I want then to have an opinion from you on, is it seems to me that there is the range of possible options, which I already mentioned in the public session. We've got the bit along Coronation Field, 2 bits on the green and a bit round the memorial. We could do none of them, 4 of them, or any combination of 1, 2 or 3. And we would need to assemble that range of options. We'd need to consider any other changes that we might want to include in a possible project. And the things that strike me immediately are, there's been a suggestion from one member of the public, and others I think probably support it. In fact, yes, I know 2, which would be to extend the looped path in the green down to the gate into Poplar Road. Oh, sorry, the Stocks it is. I said Poplar Road before, it's the Stocks there technically. So, or Stocks Road. So that would enable people who walk into the field near the hairdressers, where there is no path, to walk through the garden on a path and out near the bus shelter without having had to walk around the triangle, where it's very dangerous if someone comes in from down the hill, especially if you're pushing a buggy or a pram or child on a scooter or whatever. So that would safeguard that. Sorry, go on. Have I missed something?
Well, only that the exit is through a kissing gate.
Indeed, but all things are possible.
So buggies and things don't go through kissing gates.
But you said that we're going to have to
replace that anyway, so there's an option of doing something different.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. That's what we've already.
No, but you're right.
You're right. This side isn't the kissing gate.
They don't. They don't. Okay, you're quite right. That's a point that not being a mother with a toddler, I hadn't thought of. Correct.
There's no point replacing it and ripping it out, then, so
no, exactly.
But other changes, you see, we've got the kissing gate, which we said at the end of last year was something we wanted to do, but we're obviously not going to jump in immediately now, as long as it hangs together until we know what we're doing. I think then we would need, and it will be quite tricky, but we need to assemble a range, in my view, of pros and cons for the options, and some of the pros and cons will be sort of standing. And some of them will be, well, there's a particular pro or a con on this particular option. So, for instance, someone said to me today, and you know, ideas, it's interesting, ideas are being expressed that are useful. Someone said to me today, if you take away the hedge behind the memorial, I mean, this is just a con, it's not the only thing. But if you take away the hedge behind the memorial, that enables children to then play around the memorial, more likely.
And the pro was, if you take it away, people would be able to stand round there on
exactly
Remembrance Day.
And these things are not going to have neat answers. No. So possibly what you need to do is to have something that is not as big a hedge as it is at the minute, but stops people or children just running straight through up and down the stairs.
And it was ditto the bit between the bus shelter and the garage.
Yeah.
Some people were saying they prefer the hedge not to be there because they didn't feel so isolated if they're using the equipment. Yeah. Other people said they prefer the hedge to be there because they didn't want people watching them not using the equipment.
All true. The view from the policeman today was open every time for safety. Yeah. Safety and security, that firstly you can't be abused out of sight.
And abuse yourself on that equipment.
And secondly, even children bullying each other are then open to being seen. The other thing that I thought was rather interesting, and my inclination is that I would be concerned, I think, about not having any kind of barrier along the road, which is what most people are saying, stop people running out. Someone came up with an interesting idea this morning. They said, don't forget that a child coming out of nowhere is at danger from traffic. A child running across a field that the cars can see, they're open to, they know when they're coming to the edge of the
see
road.
them if they're coming down that way, don't they?
Indeed, it depends. It depends exactly where they are. Of course, all these things have angles.
The other issue,
but children can run off the curb without you ever knowing. So
the other issue with the Wall Memorial bit as well was there's a holly tree right in the middle. You'd have to take that out, but that's not an issue. But the Wall Memorial in effect faces the road.
It does.
So if you were gathered around that side, you'd be having to walk around there to reach that side. So it's one of those.
And the rector can only face one way.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. So there's all those. As you say, it's pros and cons for every argument, really, isn't it? So,
at one level, it's unfortunate that the memorial is quite where it is because, of course, it was put there when there was no traffic. Worth mentioning. On the other, and there was no hedge either way, by the way. No hedge either, by the way. And it of course faced the corner because that was where it was going to be looked for. On the other hand, if it was somewhere further back, if you then think about the one in Tenterden, I always think the memorial in Tenterden in the middle of the huge amount of grass always looks a bit orphaned. So there are pros and cons. But what I would suggest is we need, if we get this thing back from Ashford, we need to start thinking of options and pros and cons. We also then need to start doing at least a wet finger budget for how much different things would cost were we to do them. No decision at this point for the alternatives. And at that point, and this will be some time I think then I would suggest the council has to consider again and decide whether it remains interested in doing something, having got some more information. And if so, it can consider whether exactly how to move towards a decision on it, whether it wants to have a parish meeting, whatever. And ultimately, I think the only other thing is it's council-owned land. It'll be a decision for the council, but a parish meeting would help people, give them the opportunity to make their points.
I think it's
and
important
give us an idea.
that people get the chance to do that.
To say why they think this or that.
Albeit, I think it's one of those matters that we're never going to get 100% agreement on.
No, you won't. That's why I think it would be important to stress that it's not ultimately a decision for the referendum principles, as it were. It's a council decision on council-owned land, but it gives them the opportunity to take stock with other people of what their ideas are.
I think that one of the things that is worth considering is maybe a broader contextual view of it. In other words, for example, the removal of hedging, whether or not the regulations. I mean, the principle of it. What do we do in the parish, maybe to offset that, or so it's not seen in isolation. The same for actually the field itself, Coronation Field itself. To my mind, rather than just look at this, and I think it's important to look at it, but what's the long term? Are we going to invest more? Are we going to put more equipment in there? If we're opening it up and wanting to attract or people like Tim and his grandchildren, what else should we be thinking about there? Are we going to sort of re-look at what's on the village green in terms of play equipment, for example? So all I would say is that we should widen out the context of it and look at other opportunities. I don't know, maybe this could be several stages down the road, so to speak, excuse the pun, but maybe we get some sort of form of expert opinion or professional advice. People have done this before and say, well, have you thought of this, or this is an option here, or what have you. I mean, we take advice in highways and speeding and cemetery and what have you. This is such an important asset for the village that there are a number of things I think we should at least consider, and it might cost a little bit of money in reaching a balanced and informed decision.
And building on that idea of Paul's, I think it would be really good if we were to involve Lexi. So I think she's done a really great job with the triangle.
Yes, very good.
Actually, what else could she foresee hanging around the memorial and the park, the green rather?
Yep. And Phil for that.
And Phil as well. Yeah. The one thing that does concern me.
We might be winning more trees.
Well, the one thing that does concern me is a number of times I see children climbing in some of those trees on the green, and the one when you go through the gate from the street, actually that tree is becoming quite damaged.
The apple tree, you mean, or the cherries?
Or the
two
fir.
flowering cherries.
The fir tree, the fir.
Yes. Oh, that.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Like,
right by the gate.
hanging over the gate.
That's an area perhaps just throwing one in where, of course, if they were more visible, they would perhaps be less likely to do it. I was also told today that a lot of things go on behind the bus shelter, by which they mean between the bus shelter and the hedge that goes round it, which is completely out of sight. I was told we wouldn't wish to know some of the things that went on in there.
When we did the litter pick, that particular behind there was just full of broken glass, broken bottles and things.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's not children
and that again, you see, you wouldn't see it from the road, but at least you'd see it from the other side.
I think it's true that
and
a
from
lot
the
of
street.
people don't know that the facilities there exist. And I mean, personally, at the moment, I'm not sure that removing a hedge is the way to make the equipment more evident. And I think there are other ways of doing that, through the magazine or whatever. I did get an email from a parishioner just the other day who lives in that area, and I won't say who it is because I'm not sure I have permission to do that, but he does purport to represent quite a lot of people on that side of the road in the street. And she says, I for one would not wish the hedge to be removed. I totally agree. There's a lack of a footpath and bus stop down the street and past the memorials. It's a very dangerous route for lots of children daily. My children walk that way to the bus each day, often swerving cars as they turn into the street. This is an accident waiting to happen. I feel removing a hedge would open up the green to traffic noise and cars. It's currently a safe haven for children and dog walkers who can run around freely without concern from traffic speeding into the village along the main road. I would be concerned letting my dog off the lead without a hedge, and it would perhaps increase the risk of accidents with football flying low over a picket fence onto the road where potentially children could then run out to retrieve the ball. The area is a haven for birds and wildlife, and why would we want to hack that away? The area has gone a good deal of trimming and tidying over the past few years, and the hedges and surrounding plants are neat and pruned. All this effort would be wasted.
Sure. Well, all perfectly fair points. Unfortunately, we have this situation of them on both sides all the time.
Did we maybe we did do this and agreed it, and this wasn't around. Did we think about going as a group to look at it?
Yeah, I suggested it would be good to have
because we've done that for the cemetery and we've done that for other situations.
Yes, we did.
Helpful in the discussion
because I mentioned it, but then when I said about it, Chairman said, "Well, wasn't any point if the answer was no." So, but now it's something that we can go ahead.
We can definitely do that, and I mean that'll help to inform people's thoughts for the alternatives and the pros and cons.
Can I just ask, linking to that, why the bit between the bus shelter and the garage hasn't been cut so long? That's sort of everywhere, whereas the others are all quite neat.
Yes, well, obviously now we've got to wait to the end of August before anything can be done. According to hedgerows. Yes,
but we did cut it last year.
It wasn't cut when others were cut. That's what I mean. Obviously,
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay, thanks.
No, it is our job.
There was a reason. But
what I mean is we lowered the height.
Oh yes, we lower all of it, but it hasn't been done.
Just
quite right.
Conscious, Jeremy, this is the second time we've talked about this, and we talked about pros and cons. Could we start to document some of the pros and cons?
Oh, very much. That's when I was talking before, in my mind was we'd have to have lists.
So I was going to suggest I'm happy to start to document and then pass it on.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, if people make notes of them.
Our open spaces man.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. So I'm happy to start that.
Okay, good. That would be very helpful, David. Thank you.
Can I just say, I find the biggest problem in all this is the promotion that these open spaces are actually there in the village. I think that's the biggest problem. I find it absolutely amazing that someone who's lived in the village 12 or 15 years is not aware of it.
Indeed. I think lives at the other end of the village in Peening Quarter, or down a Parish Tree, drives up this end, if at all, mostly going to Tenterham maybe rather than this end, doesn't certainly walk a dog up this end, maybe doesn't have a dog, and any children playing are going to play down that end as well. it's still a bit odd. But when we moved here, Nuala found it very quickly because of walking around.
We did talk about signage of parish assets, didn't we? Does that come under?
Indeed, branding.
Yeah.
It will help if you go into the green to know that it's provided by the parish council and it's the green. Yeah. If we get to that, as I hope we will, but it won't help you to know it's there. I mean, you can come back to saying, well, let's do a piece in Outlook when there's space. But on the other hand, we know a lot of people don't read Outlook, so it is quite tricky. The best way of making it known of all would be if it is opened up, because people will see it. And the point about the equipment, if you go, for instance, to Woodchurch, I mean, that's where I went first to know what the equipment was when we were first going to buy our phase 1 equipment. I went up to Woodchurch and saw it sitting on the green right by the road. Everyone knows it's there. You drive past it.
Have you seen people on it at Woodchurch?
I don't go up there very often.
Well, my mum's got a house there.
No, but it's the other side of a hedge.
I don't think.
You used to uphold the fact that the women used it early in the morning, didn't you?
Oh, 6 o'clock, yes.
George's not up then.
7 o'clock, there's no one there at 7 o'clock.
All come and gone. I used it the other day. I went round them all. I thought they were great.
You did, yes.
I think the thing is, if it's open or closed isn't necessarily relevant, because I think if someone who lives down that end of the village...
I was being watched by...
on the pavement watching you do it.
I was being watched by Yvonne.
I'm confused. For me, it would have been a con. I would definitely not want to do it while I was being watched.
I was being watched by Yvonne, and I put up with it manfully.
Well, I hope you did it properly.
I did.
I think the fact that it's open or closed isn't necessarily relevant. If someone who lives down that end of the village isn't going to walk all the way up this end of the village, whether it's open or closed, so I think that could be a bit of a red herring if we're not careful. So. But anyway,
okay. Well, you're going to start putting things together. Okay, let's move on. We've talked a lot about that a lot. So then we go to our end of year statement and budget and receipts and payments.
Right, that's what you had last month. Anybody got any questions from that? Having studied it.
Let's just make sure we're looking at the same pages.
It's an end of year statement, 2016-17, and the receipts and payments account.
Oh, right, this side. Yeah, I was on the wrong page. I was on the wrong side of the page. So it's that one and that one, right?
I would have given them out, I would have thought.
Indeed. Well, bye Phil, bye Valerie, bye Roger. Yeah, I didn't have any on that. On the page with the 3 columns, you find that Yvonne has balanced the expenditure against the receipts and payments account at the end. So that's how she gets to the money all adding up.
Did you want to have a quick look at mine, David?
Sorry, I can't find my share.
I need that back. That's got to be signed, though. So. Both of them you need to look at.
Side by side.
Yeah, so if there's any...
I couldn't see anything.
So you've got the receipts and payments account with the sort of mostly 2 columns and a couple of extras off to the right. And then on the back of the other side, you'll find that reconciliation at the bottom where you come to the R&P, the 54,779.32. That presumably is where we paid things like the lawyers, is it? Or Willie and that. And that one, VAT to be reclaimed, is because you always get it back on the quarter afterwards. That I'll talk to you about that another time, because I had difficulty getting my mind around that one.
Okay.
I mean, that's a memorandum figure anyway. Okay, so the one with the portrait version, does anyone have any queries for Yvonne? Or is everyone happy with that? That's the ones that we got out last. We got given to us last month.
Just a quick question. The bank balance is of the 31st of March. It's 121 or 67.
67.
That's total receipts, isn't it?
Okay. So yeah. So that's receipts and
yes, it's just showing you that they have to balance.
Of course.
So you've got
right.
your total receipts are 55.
Yeah.
And your total payments.
For the year, and the expenditure is 54.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got over the year, we're just in the black.
Yes.
Carried forward the previous balance.
Yep.
Gives 67.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
And the 121 is really just a check for it.
Yeah, it's just so that it all adds up.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm looking for a proposal, please.
So that is the end of year statement and budget and receipts and payments account presented at the last meeting, which when it comes back I will have to sign.
George is proposing. Can I have a second?
Seconder. Paul.
Thank you.
Everyone happy? All good. Unanimous.
You also had the reserves figure, and I presume you're all.
That's this one. That's landscape.
That's what we're carrying forward and using. That was that one.
Yeah. You got this one back.
Yeah, I haven't moved. Yeah, so that you can.
I've seen that. Yeah.
You want me to sign these now?
No, that one's probably better. That's just one.
So I'm signing down here.
Yes, please. Thank you. Right. Okay.
And here.
Yes, please. Thank you. And that one when they're finished with it. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that one, if you wouldn't mind, too, please. Okay.
Down here.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay. So that's that part. Then we do the annual return. So the first thing is to consider the findings of the review of the system of financial internal control, or internal financial control, whichever.
So basically it's that bit we had above, if you're all happy with what we considered it.
Yeah.
Now the next bit, to resolve and approve the annual governance statement. They're the bits that the annual return section 1 that I once again typed out, because this is the way it appears. It's in this form. And when I scanned it in last time, the chairman said it was very difficult to read. So I thought if I write it all out, because I don't want to have to read, because you've got to go yes or no on all those questions. So you've seen it.
Yeah.
So question 1, put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of the accounting statements. Yes.
Shall I suggest, unless we're not allowed to do it this way, that we go through the 8 and if we are happy with the yeses in each case, then at the end of it I will ask for a proposal and a seconder.
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
In other words, we have to do certain things in certain orders under the law, but I don't think there's any reason why we can't do 8 of them together. Is that all right? So if you've got in front of you the thing which Yvonne sent out, so we've put in place the arrangements, etc., that she just read out. Yes means this small authority prepared its accounting statements in accordance with the accounts and audit regulations. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. We maintained an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption, and reviewed its effectiveness. Yes means the smaller authority made proper arrangements and accepted responsibility for safeguarding public money and resources in its charge. Yes.
Yeah.
We took all reasonable steps to assure ourselves there are no matters of actual or potential non-compliance with laws, regulations and proper practices that could have a significant financial effect on the ability of the smaller authority to conduct its business or on its finances. Yes means that the smaller authority has only done what it has the legal power to do and has complied with proper practices in doing so. Yes.
Yeah.
We provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electors' rights in accordance with the requirements of the accounts and audit regulations. The yes means that this small authority during the year gave all persons interested the opportunity to inspect and ask questions about this authority's accounts.
Yep.
Yep. We carried out an assessment of the risks facing the smaller authority and took appropriate steps to manage those risks, including the introduction of internal controls and or external insurance cover where required. Yes means that this small authority considered the financial and other risks it faces and has dealt with them properly. Yes. We maintained throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit of the accounting records and control systems. Yes means that this small authority arranged for a competent person independent of the financial controls and procedures to give an objective view on whether internal controls meet the needs of this smaller authority. Yes. We took appropriate action on all matters raised in reports from internal and external audit. Yes means that this smaller authority responded to matters brought to its attention by internal or external audit. And I did write a little note for myself, Yvonne, were there any matters raised in
I was just
years?
going to say, the only thing that I haven't actually done, he was talking about internet banking, which I do need to go into.
But we haven't done it.
But we haven't done it yet. But it's on the list of things to look into. I've got a file on it.
So, well, we took appropriate action. In this case, we haven't taken that action yet. We didn't need to, and we haven't done.
No, but I've looked into it, and I've got a file, so we started.
Yes, but basically it's a yes anyway, because if we didn't want to do it, that was fine. We considered whether any litigation, liabilities or commitments, events or transactions occurring either during or after the year end have a financial impact on this smaller authority, and where appropriate have included them in the accounting statements. Yes means that this small authority disclosed everything it should have about its business activity during the year, including events taking place after the year end if relevant. Yes. So if everyone's happy with all the yeses, can I have a proposer for that and a seconder? Sue's proposing, Paul's seconding. Everyone happy? So Yvonne can then tick that.
You've got to sign.
I know, but you can tick them all off first.
Well, I've done it as you said them.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise I wouldn't know where it was.
Paul, you're just about to say something.
Okay.
Right.
Spot on.
That's a very spiky one. It's not the one I was signing with before.
No, it was the same sort, but it's just...
The paper's different, maybe.
Right.
Resolved to approve the annual governance statement previously circulated to councillors. That's where we've got
that's
the other
the one that I sort of did you a little... Yeah, and that obviously looks like that's in here.
So there are some numbers here.
Yes.
Right.
The one thing that I thought here is, do we have anywhere the annual caretaker's staff costs, which you had to pull out as part of these staff costs, didn't you? But we don't have it anywhere on our caretaker's budget, do we? Or caretaker's account, or did I just not look at the right page?
You haven't come to that one yet, have you?
Okay.
When we come to our annual...
But what I mean is it's in here.
Yes.
Okay.
You think I...
So we can't do this yet, because we haven't approved it.
Well, yes, because it's in the total.
No, we haven't got to it yet.
Oh, I see what you mean, doing it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you do it on the 12 months of the authority year, or do you do it on the 12 months of the caretaker year?
It's financial year.
It's financial year, so you've got 1 from the previous year and 11 from this year. So we don't have it anywhere, actually. I mean, it obviously all has to just add up, but okay. It was just a question when I was looking through, seeing where they'd all come from, you see. Okay. No matter. Because we always have the caretaker account separately, for obvious reasons.
Yes, it's within the caretakers.
The issue really is that in our normal carry-on here, we have the monthly accounts from the two, and we look at the council's money against the precept, which has 4,000 paid to the caretaker account. The caretaker account is kind of semi-detached, but when you come to do the annual return, you have to put it all back in together.
It's within
that. Exactly. No, exactly. I understand that.
Well, as long as it's not going to come to more than that, then
no, but it's within.
Fine.
It's within it.
It's within that, and you've approved that.
Yeah. Do you need
because
to
this is
approve
going
this first?
No, because that's the end of the year. That's something different. It's
within
this.
Right.
You see, you could say that with all of it. It's all.
Well, so if it's within that, then you can approve that.
Yes.
In terms of the return.
Yes,
what we're doing
please.
is approving what goes in there.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with approving the return, except that part of one of the figures we haven't actually got on a piece of paper in front of us, and we won't have that because even if we had approved the 12 months of the caretaker, because caretaker goes from May to April instead of April to March, and that's because Ashford originally started it late, then it's always 1 month out. You have to include 1 month for 1 year and 11 months for the next year, and that's just an added problem for Yvonne.
But the figure that's in the annual return, if that's correct, then...
Yeah, I'm not suggesting it's not correct.
No, but
just that we can't say it's on another piece of paper, that's all.
Yeah, see, it's within, once again, it's within this, because this is my
You have to go
master.
through and add them all up. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right, take it from
I'm not concerned. Okay.
You can have them, take them home with you if you like.
Thank you very much. So, we've got the numbers here. If everyone has had the opportunity to have a look at them. I mean, this is a situation, by the way, where I think Yvonne would agree with me. How exactly they audit this. I mean, it's neither one thing nor another. It's sort of just to pick out 6 figures at random almost.
These are where, if there's 15% difference between last year and this year, this is where I have to explain exactly down to the last pound where it.
And you'll do that?
Yes.
Good.
Can I just ask on one thing? So line number 4, staff costs. There's been a decrease. Looks like there's been a decrease.
Yes, overtime and stuff was different. The things. It's the way it was worked. Because I looked at that and thought it's a bit odd.
Yeah.
But yes. Yeah. It's because where Easter came in and all that sort of bit weird.
Yeah, well, of course, this year, yes, Easter was April, and if last year it was in March, so it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Right, I've signed it, CRFO. So you need to date it there, if I date it. Because I confirm that these accounting statements were approved by the smaller authority on signed by the chair. And I have to give the minutes, which is why I had to work out beforehand what all the minute numbers were. Thank you very much. It now goes to the internal auditor for him to complete that bit. He has to do the same sort of thing, go through it all. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so got through. Right, that's all of 23, I think. So we're then on to correspondence. Correspondence is the insurance renewal, which is renewed from the end of this month. Now, we use Cayman Company as our insurance brokers, who, I don't know if it's the only thing they specialise in, but they certainly specialise in doing insurance for small councils, because they appear at all the big conferences and things, the Calc AGM and what have you. And the idea being that they, like a traditional insurance broker or a normal commercial broker nowadays, they provide the advice of what we actually need for non-insurance people. What they had done for us before was that we had a 3-year deal that has just run out, in which we paid the same amount each year for 3 years, guaranteed, and it covered what they had advised as being our requirements, apart from the fact that each year they put up our sums covered by whatever percent it was, inflation, and that obviously had a slight effect, and also the insurance premium tax. But apart from that, everything stayed the same. Well, the 3-year deal has just come to an end, so the first thing is we need to go on to a new deal, either for 1 year or 3 years. They went out having already decided, in effect, how much insurance we need, for what. And this is their kind of covering letter. They went out to they went out to maybe more than that, but they certainly went to 3 companies and gave us underwriters and gave us the price of each one, and they've given us a comparison. The core covers that we're getting on what they call their local council insurance is in public liability, employer's liability, which is legally mandatory. Funnily enough, public liability isn't, rather surprisingly. Hirer's indemnity, official's indemnity, libel and slander, fidelity guarantee, personal accident, money cover, small amount, property is all risks, increased cost of working if something happens and it costs us more to keep operating, loss of revenue, commercial legal expenses. They then went out to 3 companies, Inspire, which is a brand of AXA, Hiscox, who you know because they do the personal stuff a lot, and Ecclesiastical, which you'll know from your days on the PCC probably. They have done a comparison with them all in a table somewhere, which isn't actually, yes it is, which is printed there, and they say sometimes, for instance, hirer's liability £5 million, well Ecclesiastical only gives us 2 million, but personal accident they're asking for 50,000, but actually Hiscox and Inspire give us 100,000.
Is that per incident?
You're asking technical questions. I understand. You're asking technical questions.
Public liability and accident needs to be per.
Probably is. I think it's Hiscox.
Because otherwise you.
No, I understand.
Have to have more than one accident.
That is the AXA one, because AXA is the one that is recommended. Because their fee for 1 year for AXA was £809, Hiscox was £866, and Ecclesiastical was £910. All of them inclusive of insurance premium tax. Okay.
Quick question on that.
That's insuring everything except the van.
With hirer's insurance, what's that covering? And is it covering us for the village hall as the trustee body?
Hirer's indemnity. If the council insures a building, which we don't,
right,
this covers legal liability for hirers of council premises should injury or damage to property occur during the period of hire. Now, we don't insure the building, the village hall committee does.
I wondered if there's a way of doing a deal, as in, you've got two lots of potential insurance here. We can bring it under one roof, so to speak.
It's a thought. I don't. It's one for George, really. I don't even know whether they do use Cayman Company.
No,
they
I don't know what the time
invited
scale renewal is either.
No. Certainly, Cayman Company is saying if there are any other places.
I'm just trying to think. I can't think of any other liability that the village hall would have that hasn't been covered in terms of public liability and hirers. And so
building
yeah. Well, it might be worthwhile just going back to Cayman Co and say, because they do village hall insurance.
Indeed, they do.
In fact, aren't they the brokers for the village hall anyhow?
It might be. They certainly are interested in doing them.
I'll find out next week.
Might be some economies, mightn't there?
Yeah, well, I was thinking possible.
I mean, it'd be one of those things.
It
if
is
you take
possible.
it off hours, it won't make any difference.
Yeah.
Probably it wouldn't reduce it, but it might
it
save
is possible.
the village
It is
hall if it
possible that we would be able, if we chose to, and you chose to, with your committee that we could insure it and you reimburse us for the relevant element.
Yeah.
If it then saved money.
I'll find out.
I think you'll find that I saw it somewhere, maybe in the actual charity document of your hall, which is a standard thing probably. There may be something there. I certainly saw it somewhere recently about doing that kind of thing where if we insured it, you would reimburse us.
Oh yeah.
Jeremy, you said at the start about 1 year and 3 year.
Yeah.
The quotes you gave just then are all for 1 year?
They were 1 year. Now,
3-year quotes.
Now the three year contract knocks off, I think, 5%, which was in somewhere or other. Can't find it now. It was certainly somewhere, maybe right.
It's £768.90 as opposed to 809.
Yeah. Now
paid yearly or paid all in lump sum at the beginning?
Paid yearly.
No, you pay yearly.
But
what worried me slightly, which I asked Yvonne to look into, and we haven't got an answer yet, and I might be being too worried about this, is that the 3-year deal with AXA only held true if we never claimed more than 40% of our annual premium. So in other words, it's a bit like a sort of no claims in reverse. We get 5% off and they'll hold the premium down, but if you actually claim more than 40% in any 1 year, they're released from their obligation. Now, of course, you will have had it cheaper already.
So you just go back to...
You go back to whatever they then want to charge you, which of course is true if you had a 1 year. So maybe I'm making a fuss over nothing there. It just seemed to me that it was kind of the insurance taking a premium and not wanting to pay out, which is about what they are.
3-year one you pay annually anyway.
Yeah, nothing to lose. No, that could be entirely right. It just struck me that, as I say, they really wanted to we'd be locked in for 3 years, even if the market softened and we could get it cheaper. But if we actually claimed, they wanted to get out of it.
Yeah, it's unlikely that the market's going to go down.
My limited experience of that particular type of brokerage is probably over the 3, and they're ecclesiastical, obviously. I would suggest that, from experience from a business point of view, Hiscox would probably be the one I would suggest to go for, because they have a great track record in being flexible. And in one of the businesses, we actually had to raise our insurance premiums to bid for a particular contract, which turned out not to be what we really wanted in the end. So then they were very flexible in saying, well, just raise the premium for the 2 months where you've got to satisfy the contract conditions, and then depending on how that works out, you can revert back to what it was before. And from a customer service point of view and flexibility, they were very, very helpful.
It would be worth knowing that, because with our SIDS, we might need to add things into the insurance in the future, and sometimes companies charge a lot to make amendments.
Changes.
Well, okay. In terms of the comparison that the broker gives us, public liability 10 million. I'm looking now at Hiscox and AXA, the recommended and the Hiscox, which is a little bit dearer. Public liability both do the 10 million. Hirers liability both do the 5 million. It doesn't matter, we don't think it applies. Employers liability both do the 10 million. Libel and slander. Sorry, I've jumped one. Officials indemnity, they both do the 500,000. Libel and slander, the brokers asked for 250,000, but actually it's 500,000 in both. Employee dishonesty, 150,000, they both do. Personal accident, they both do 100,000, but they're only required to do 50. Commercial legal expenses, they both do the 100,000. Money, the 1,000, is both yes, except AXA does 2,500, but I don't think we're into that. Loss of revenue, they both do the 10,000. Increased cost of working, they both do the 10,000. Motor no claims excess doesn't apply in their case, because we've got that with Farmers Union, I think, haven't we?
In a few,
Contents away from premises, 5,000, same. Defibrillators, 5,000, same. This is why I say it's the brokers know what we have to have. Keyman cover, they ask for £400 a week for 26 weeks. In fact, they both only give 250 a week, up to 2,500 in a year. But it's not very clear to me what that really... it's where someone goes and you have to get somebody in, I think. Business travel, not really an issue. Hiscox is only for cancellation and curtailment, unless you buy more cover, and AXA doesn't do it anyway. Equipment breakdown is not there in either case, because we didn't ask for it. Contract works is 75,000 is yes for Hiscox, and 10% of the cost for AXA, which would obviously be rather less than 75.
That's quite important, David's point about the cemetery, because if that cost, if there is a problem there, and bear in mind that the groundworks is estimated already in 10,000, whereas Hiscox will cover all that, whereas AXA will only cover 10% of that. So that's quite a big difference.
And crisis management, 25,000 asked for, Hiscox does it, and AXA does 500,000.
What was the price difference, please, Jeremy?
Not very big. Not very big. I mean, I take the advice from what Paul said. Inspire is 809 for the 1 year rate, and Hiscox is 866. So you're talking about an extra £57, a bit less if you take your 5% off. I think that the recommendation was simply that the other one was cheaper. Yvonne could ask them, because they're always very helpful on the phone. Now, the council must now clearly disclose every material circumstance. This is under the new law, which you, your councillors or persons responsible for arranging your insurance know or ought to know following a reasonable search, which is an impossible question with no sensible answers. But Yvonne does have to search her thoughts and tell them anything under some new regulation that's come in, just to help us along. So, do we think then that we'd rather go with Hiscox for 3 years?
You might want to make a quick call to them and say,
is there any downside?
Away from AXA, can you match it? It's worth asking.
I doubt, to be honest. I think that Cayman Co are placing a lot with them. But
is it worth also ringing both of them, and as I suggested, asking about the possibility how much it would cost to add something on later? Because if one's £200 and one's £50,
we'll only deal through Cayman Company. We won't go to the underwriters, but that could be asked. So how much? Normally, when we've added things before, you've done things like the extra play equipment, and they come back and say £9 and things like that.
Yes,
or even sometimes just next.
They just said
they're not difficult. No. So we need to ask whether there are any obvious reasons against Hiscox that they haven't mentioned. I take Paul's point that Hiscox sells on the basis of being a more indulgent underwriter, or a more high quality service, or whatever you want to call it. Whether it's true or not, I mean, for personal cover they're always dearer, but they always say that they cover more. That's the basis of their whole marketing pitch. Of course, insurers market and pay claims from separate teams. Okay. What we have got to do, though, is give Yvonne the approval to go with Hiscox if she doesn't get any negative vibes, because we've got to do it by the 1st of June.
I think that's right.
Okay.
I agree.
George is proposing, and Paul is seconding. And if everybody's happy with that, so we can go for Hiscox unless you get any negatives that you're not comfortable with. If you do get negatives, you've got the Inspire for less money approved as well. Approved?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Right. We've had the certificate of membership from Action with Communities in Rural Kent. The Working Party reports, that is the usual monthly ones which you had on your table as we came in. monthly transaction statement. That's the portrait, the landscape with one on each side of the page. Is everyone happy with that? David's proposing and Sue's seconding.
Just remind what ICCM is.
Institute of Cemetery and Crematorium Management, which we are now members of, and I've got the.
Can we all use that? Member of.
And I've got the logo that can be added to website if we wish.
Wow. Is this the one I'm signing?
No, this is the one. That was your one. That's the. That's the caretaker's one. That's the monthly one. So you will have seen on it we've got the pension payments coming through now. That was the 3 months, but it'll be coming through monthly. Now.
Okay.
I have written down what it stands for, just in case you wondered.
So now the caretaker's end of year statement, because I was saying it's a month later, so we've got this one in landscape as well, with the budget for the new year. You're comfortable at Canardington are going to pay us again? Obviously that's why you put it in.
Well, they've, did say
they've given you to understand. It's a budget anyway. Okay. Any problems with that? No. Good.
What's that one there?
I guess we'll be seeing less maintenance on vehicles and more.
Yes,
with the newer repairs.
Yes, because he had lots of things going wrong.
Yes, and of course, unlike normal commercial accounts, we don't depreciate the van. It just sits there at what we paid for it until we sell it. It's a weird system. That's the way it works on our official accounting. So, decisions received from ABC is the Wittersham Church of England Preparatory,
which I haven't put
preparatory school, primary school.
You notice I didn't put any wording down, did I? It raised no objection, is what I should say.
Yeah. So that was accepted.
Expected.
Anything on highways, Paul? No.
Well, there's since they had some of it was before the last meeting, but since then they did carry on with some patching work and what have you.
They've done quite a lot.
They've done quite a lot. There's one or two. And one or two of the edges are a bit sort of dodgy. Coming into the village from Ping Quarter, as you come in just past Smitings, on the left-hand side, the edge of the road there is all fallen away and all crumpled up and what have you. So anyone sort of driving on the edge there or cycling might
say cycling.
on motorbike.
That was when, if you remember, when we had all the drainage trouble there, and the drainage boss lady that came round, whoever, I can't remember her name now, she saw that and she said, "Oh, I'll make a note of that. We'll get that sorted." Yeah. Well, that was the drainage team.
She went on maternity leave.
Is that what she did? Well,
with her notebook.
Yes, obviously. So that never. But she saw that, and that was over a year ago. Yeah. Yes. So and they have marked the potholes up at the stocks.
Yes. Again, in fact, they were working on them yesterday or today.
Good.
Have we got any closures coming up that we know of?
I will let you know as soon as
yes.
They go on Facebook.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Footpaths.
Hang on. Yes. Have I? No, I think I've said it, haven't I?
Yeah. Footpaths.
Yes, I have.
Off you go.
Well, only as part of being countryside access warden, I get asked if I will check the quality of the vegetation cutting. You know, when they do it a couple of times a year, the footpaths, especially the one down to the river it's very nettly, and they do that. So I check it that it's to a decent quality. So and Ashford, they're starting next week, the borough here, so they should start making it easier to.
Open spaces, David.
And just that the one along the river has been Have you noted it has all the gates are all okay now?
Unlocked.
I haven't been out for a week or so.
Yes, well it's okay now.
Time to take the horse out.
Open spaces, David.
Not me, no, somebody will.
Before I go on to open spaces, sorry, I tried to indicate when we're talking about highways.
Oh right, sorry.
I don't know what because I think it's beyond us, but there's been a couple of near misses in the past few weeks at Small Hythe with the parking for the National Trust. And I'm amazed that we've never had anybody badly injured there.
This is people backing out from
It's
the
people
herring
backing
boat.
out, and it's pedestrians coming out into the road around cars. I don't know what we can do to influence. It's almost as I think at some point the lines must have been slightly altered for car parking because cars seem to jut out much more than they used to.
Bigger cars.
And bigger cars.
Some people actually put one wheel on the grass, don't they? So they don't. But
I don't know if there's anything we can do there because
is it our jurisdiction?
It's just beyond, isn't it?
Yes,
we go to the stream, the sewer. The sewer.
Could encourage them to put a sign out. Slow sign.
But they do. They put the slow pedestrians, and that's the problem. The pedestrians are too slow.
I think there's any way we could just write to town council and just register that and say it's a concern.
Okay.
So that it's on record that we at least said
if
something.
you wrote to I can't think of his name at the minute, but the clerk, and just said that they possibly don't come down here as often, but of course we're going up and down there all the time, and we've noticed it's getting difficult, and they might like to look at it. Yeah.
It gets worse as the summer goes on.
I've always found it extraordinary, working in Tenton for 35 years and driving that way perhaps 4, 5, 6 times a day that I didn't hit anybody there.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time.
Sorry, was that a question?
I'm just amazed that I got through a career.
But now you've retired. Now you've
To quote
retired.
your point,
Still time.
Peter Darliffe article you wrote, we'd have given you the Allegro.
Yes. So, David, open spaces.
There's nothing to report.
One thing just to chuck in there for your information, if you didn't know from Yvonne already, we had UK Networks saying they wanted to do a bit of trimming in there in Coronation Field. They do it, we don't have to, but they wanted to trim a bit off of a tree which is getting too near their wire, and to trim a bit of the hedge down at the end near the pond. And they filled the form in, and you've sorted that out now. Did you ever get the guy back on his phone?
No.
You just filled the form in and sent it off. Yeah.
They're around because they did the one in the field there the other day.
What was interesting, because I saw the guy originally, he came into the shop when I was there and said, "I'm just looking for Wittersham Parish Council. I've got some Mrs. Osborne in Y or something, and he was in Wittersham." So I said, "Oh, that's handy." So I took the form off him and he explained to me what he wanted to do. What was interesting was that I told him straight away about the grief we had 3 years ago with the wires coming down at Christmas. And he, but I also said to him that I saw some guys parked in the meadows one night about a year ago maybe, and I went out to see them sitting in their vehicle, and I said, "Hi there, what are you doing?" And they said, "We're waiting for our man who's gone out to Recce to find out how we can get across a few farmers' fields to get to a wire." And I said, "Why don't you know exactly what you're going to do and how to get there and who's got the keys and all the rest of it?" And he said, "Well, I do." He said, "I'm the man who does this area and I know all of that." He assured me, and we've got his name and number. He said, "I don't know why they didn't have that information." But as for the wires that came down 3 years ago, I said that was a problem where you caused a lot of grief. And he said he knew all about it, and it had caused ructions in UK Power Networks.
Good.
He said the regulator was involved and all sorts. Now I can't vouch for any of that, but that's what he said. He said it caused real problems because of the bad bit.
In my garden.
This wasn't the one we were talking about. We were talking about the one near Miriam's.
Yeah, the one up there.
The one that cut a lot of people off on Christmas Eve until after Christmas. And they were. He did claim that they had had their backsides kicked, whoever it was. So who knows? Okay, cemetery and churchyard. Sue?
No.
Okay.
Only that the brambles and the ivy's been cut off from that corner where the wall is, where the wall is collapsing, and I'm just waiting for the quote for repair on that.
Okay. Thank you. So we're going to authorise payments. We've got to pay £60 plus VAT for Alan to go off and become dynamic.
Well, I hope it works.
We're still waiting.
We're hoping that.
Do I get my money back?
We're hoping that they'll put your watch forward 5 minutes.
I like to be prompt. I like to be early.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy that.
We noticed.
In another 9 days. Reports for noting. George on the Village Hall Management Committee.
I said at the last meeting, I just looked at it and I can't remember what I said now, that they sent a letter out, hadn't they, asking for other. We've had a success.
Good.
We've got a rep from the Film Society.
Oh, I knew that.
Well, sorry. We've got a rep from the Film Society.
No, I mean I knew that because I heard from somebody else.
I was pleased. That's one.
Indeed.
That's one anyway in our little quest. So,
but wasn't that they hadn't actually had a letter, had they?
Well, they hadn't had a letter.
No, but you got it.
We sorted it out between us, so it happened. So thanks, Paul, for your support on that one. We've also the people that we already had, and this new chap isn't coming till the next meeting, next week or the week after. We've actually filled in the trustee forms now, and they've been uploaded onto the system. So we should be
you're getting better. Good.
Have you heard back from the people like the big
well, I don't know until we have the meeting and I hear what is said about that, but I haven't been killed in a stampede or anything.
Right. But you'll have another meeting shortly, you say?
Yeah, it's on the 3rd Tuesday.
Good. Is it every month on the 3rd Tuesday? Oh, wow. So that's good. You did the 2nd and the 3rd.
Oh, granted.
Okay, date of next planning meeting, we haven't got one in the diary. The next full council meeting is at the usual time and day. Items for information. The first one, I think, is the correspondence that you've got.
Sorry, can I go back?
Yes, please.
I've got it here, I just hadn't typed it down. Yeah, no, it's my fault. I was putting it in, I think, possibly highways. Necked street lights, do you remember? At the top of Swan Cottages, Necked, where they took the tops off, so there's no lights. I've been chasing this, trying to find somebody that's going to give me an answer. Actually got one. Please accept my apologies for the delay in responding. We've been waiting on the consultant's report for the past few weeks, which finally arrived this week. We are now in the process of digesting the report, and we'll be aiming to meet with the consultant in the next couple of weeks to discuss the conclusions / recommendations in terms of the street light upgrade across the borough for the 1,200 plus lights that do not currently belong to KCC. However, in respect of the specific point about the current necked street lights, including the 2 in Wittersham, the report does recommend that they are replaced and that they should meet KCC's criteria for adoption. Obviously, this process will not be immediate and will require discussion / agreement with KCC and will probably take several months. As such, we have therefore asked the consultant to look at a more immediate solution to these necked lights. What we are proposing is a temporary solution in that the necked light is replaced much more quickly. The structure, column, would be permanent. It is only the lantern itself that will be temporary, before being replaced in due course with the specific lantern needed for KCC as part of the wider programme of light replacement. I have a provisional cost from the consultant for this replacement work, so I am now just waiting on a likely delivery date. I will keep you fully posted over the coming weeks once I have more detailed information and have met with the consultant.
This is turning a small job into a big job.
I think he could have said that all in 3
How
words.
many consultants does it take
to change the light bulb?
So this is to make the borough's step towards the dark skies, isn't it?
Well, they're moving to LEDs.
Yes, it's because they. Yes, you see, it's all who belong to whose. That's the problem.
If they neck them all, they'd be all dark skies.
They do have this odd system where some streetlights are KCCs and some are Ashfords. Although it sounds from what that was as though they do sort of push the prices, the costs back and forth, because it says if we do them, then KCC will adopt them, and yet they weren't KCCs to start with. Who knows?
But they'll just do some temporary lights.
That's the
Yes. So
temporary land
gas.
Derek Harmon is the one that's been chasing me on this as well. So I gave him a copy of that so that he
will be very pleased,
because he's been ringing them up and threatening to take it to the paper and everything.
Right. So are we there? Now we can move on to items for information.
Right, now this came too late for the agenda. It came 4th of May, and it's from Mrs. Anne Beeching, Newhouse Farm, Brenzett, Romney Marsh, addressed to me. I attended the annual general meeting of the Wittersham Sports Club yesterday evening. The occasion was expected to be quite heated, but it turned into something much more unpleasant. As you are aware, a section of the community want to see the pub reopened in the Sports Pavilion. This meeting was merely to hear reports from the football and cricket clubs, to receive the Treasurer's report and to elect committee members. Unfortunately, some people attending displayed the most undignified and shameful behaviour I have ever witnessed, harassing speakers and behaving extremely childishly. Unfortunately, I have to say that at least 2 of these were parish councillors, who, like a lot of people at the meeting, had not taken the time to establish what has really gone on at the sports club. I have served on the sports club committee for the past few months and know there has been a concerted campaign on social media to rustle support for a pub on the premises. This in itself has been very vitriolic, with comments being made by people in complete ignorance of the full facts of the history of what has got on with the committee, and of the various reasons why the pub closed and why it cannot be reopened, the main one being that it does not have the support of the landlord. I understand that your parish council does not follow the code of conduct for councillors. This is a great shame, because the behaviour I witnessed on Tuesday evening was disgraceful, and I would like your reassurance that this letter will be brought to the attention of the other members of the council in order that this never happens again. Although this was not a parish council meeting, it will be and has been a parish-related matter, and councillors attending should have been more aware of how they conducted themselves, considering the office they hold and the standards of behaviour they should adhere to. It has certainly not shown the parish council in a very good light. I would be grateful for acknowledgement of this letter. Yours sincerely, Mrs. Anne Beeching, Junior Football Representative, Wittersham Sports Club. So I replied. Dear Mrs. Beeching, thank you for your letter of 3rd of May 2017 sent by email, which set out to criticise Wittersham Parish Council on account of what you claim to have been the behaviour of at least 2 parish councillors attending the annual general meeting of Wittersham Sports Club on the 2nd of May. In your covering email, you asked that I read this out at the next parish council meeting. Although it is too late to be included on the agenda, I shall do so, reading both your letter and this reply. Since you have been a member of the Sports Club Committee for a few months, as a nominee from the football club, you will be aware that attendance at the AGM is open to all residents of Wittersham over the age of 16. I was not eligible, for example, because I do not live in Wittersham, nor would you be, except that the residency requirement is curiously omitted from the club's constitution in respect of nominated representatives. As Wittersham parish councillors have to meet the same residency requirements, they are therefore all eligible to attend the Sports Club AGM if they wish, but as residents, not as councillors. As already mentioned, I was not at the meeting in question, though I understand there was a variety of views expressed from the floor by many from a crowd of almost 150, and a variety of views were heard too from those presenting reports. Apart from a personal insult by a member of the departing committee directed to a resident in response to a query he had put to the chairman, I have heard no other reports of the meeting becoming what you call unpleasant, although I understand there was some tension at times amid many contributions from the floor. I am also informed that only 1 councillor spoke, not at least 2, as you had claimed. I notice that you have referred to the previous social club as a pub, a misuse of the term, I believe. What is clear is that there never was, nor could there ever be, a pub on the sports club premises, but a licensed club is what has existed there for many years. It appears that the social club extended that activity by appealing to additional members for longer hours in more convivial circumstances, and it provided substantial and essential funding for the sporting purposes of the club, as shown by the latest accounts, I understand. You go on to make the erroneous accusation that my parish council does not follow the code of conduct for councillors, which as clerk is a direct criticism of my professional conduct. Since you are also chairman of a small parish council, Brenzett PC, you will be aware of the legal situation in this area. A code of conduct is mandatory for every parish council under the Localism Act 2011. Wittersham PC has such a code of conduct, and it can be found on the council's website. Where I think you might have confused yourself is by misunderstanding the requirements of the 2011 Act. A parish council is required to produce and adopt a code of conduct to meet certain statutory provisions. Although many local councils adopted whatever template was handed down to them by their principal authorities, along with a suitable form for disclosing councillors' pecuniary interests, the Act is centred on councils doing their own thing, or what is called localism in action. Having looked at the templates on offer, Wittersham decided to produce and adopt its own documents for both these purposes, avoiding gold-plating the legal position or introducing other uncertainties or contradictions. That was done after lengthy consultation with the relevant civil servant at the Department of Communities and Local Government. The final document was supplied to the Parish Council's monitoring officer, also the Director of Law and Governance at Ashford Borough Council, who has the relevant duty of oversight in these matters at his request, and no queries, criticisms or observations have been raised. Lastly, you go on to insinuate that councillors behaved badly at the sports club meeting, which has certainly not shown the parish council in a very good light. As I wasn't there, I will not comment directly, but I've had no never can say that word. It's a bit like statistics. Reports from anyone else. Should I hear from the departing chairman or secretary of the sports club that anything of this sort arose, I will make further inquiries, but until then I shall ignore this criticism. In a spirit of full transparency, however, I shall post this correspondence on the council's website for a period so that residents who do not routinely attend our meetings may be aware of your criticisms and the facts behind them. Yours sincerely. So that's just for information. Okay.
Right, good. Thanks for reading that out. Always exciting here. Moving on then, we've talked about the ICCM, that membership was confirmed and the volunteer warden application was successful, so we've covered all of that. Was there anything else for information?
That's all I had.
Okay. Items of information, yeah, that correspondence we've done. So the next thing then is simply to resolve by the nature of the sensitivity of the next item to exclude the public, which concerns, as the last few months, the proposed cemetery extension. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Yes, Sue? Paul will second it. Everyone happy? Content? Yes, good. Okay, thank you very much, Miriam.
I've got a couple of AOB. Should I do those while we're...
Yes, okay.
George, is that all right? So, is that all right? So, thank you, George. When we got together to talk about the communication piece of work coming out of Voices last night, we've decided that what we'd like to do, if you're in agreement, is on behalf of the Parish Council, but it's the three of us working together, is just to put something in Outlook next month to promote Next Door. Yeah. So currently we've got 58 users now. Yeah. We just want to be able to promote it and generate more sign up to it.
Good point.
So if that's all right with somebody doing that.
You've only got till Saturday to get into the next one.
That's what
You'll do that, okay.
I've worded something already. I just want to double check you're happy with that.
Good.
I was just going to ask when Alf...
Can I just suggest, and here's a delicacy to work around. We agreed originally that, of course, next door, all the councillors are members, but we never promoted it directly.
No.
So while it's a good idea for us to promote it, we shouldn't, and you shouldn't be promoting it as Wittersham Parish Council.
We weren't going to put our names to it.
Oh, okay.
We were just going to say that,
great idea.
To invite people to join if they wish.
Yeah. Okay.
Suggestion.
Oh dear.
Men of a certain age.
Use the hand dryer. The hand dryer makes noise, but that's about all it does.
That's
Nothing
it.
else
One of
comes
those,
out.
yeah. No, I think they're all the same.
You say that, I reckon I'm the oldest here by a margin.
Some hands sort it out. So.
Village sign. I just wondered when Alf, because I know Alf's got it.
What, the poll, you mean?
Yeah.
Don't nag him, or it won't get done.
It's really bad, isn't it? At the moment?
Yeah.
I know it's on his
He's got to hire a tower for it.
Has he?
Yeah. Don't put him up a ladder.
And you've got cherry pick we can borrow.
And then the only other thing is, I've been asking about white gates at the entrance to the
Yes, gateways. I read yesterday and I thought gates or gateways, that's what they're called. But
gateways.
and I'm thinking David's going to ask me.
Sorry.
So I will say I know what it's called now, but no, I haven't.
But
I think from what I can see, it's something because I had a catalogue through or saw it in something where you can buy these things, and I think a company was actually installing. So I think it's going to be something that we would have to pay for.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be something that. Yes. So just to bear that in mind.
Yeah.
And while I'm on this, can I say we don't actually have any other business? Can you find somewhere to bring this? Because we don't. That's where I
excluded the public, then we can.
Yeah, you see, items of information. That's where our.
Right.
But you can't decide anything. It has to be on the agenda.
Yeah.
I realise
unless you write in a subsequent letter, for example, because
oh yes,
we had one today.
Yes, exactly.
That 4th of May.
That was only information. That was only for information, though.
Yes. So there's no discussion on it. Yeah. That's why we can't really. It's a bit like the ICCM can come in here. Yeah. We're okay now. That's the sort of thing. So so you see, highways. You could have brought the.
I know.
Come on.
To be fair, I was up at 4:30. I was trying to flag.
I think it's a good idea, by the way.
Okay.
You see that?
Let's move on then to cemetery, so we don't just spend too much time now.